Okay.
Just wait a
So
second.
it is. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. It is now 5:37. I'm gonna call to order the special meeting June 23rd. If we could take the roll. I noticed that all members are present with the exception of Mayor Pierce.
Who's on the
And
phone?
we
saying
are
she's
going
trying
to go
connect?
immediately into closed session as described in the agenda for public employment.
There she is.
Code 54957 for interim city manager.
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, you missed it.
Fifth time is the charm, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any public comment on the closed session items. I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay.
And I don't see any public comment on the item either.
Okay.
All
so
right.
we will call the meeting of June 23rd to order.
I think that's already been done, Julie.
We didn't wait for you.
Okay, that's
But
fine.
we're done. We're ready to go.
Have you heard the phrase "day late and a dollar short"?
Just have to amend. We just have to amend the minutes to say that Julie was present.
Yes.
And before you go into closed session, when you come back out, staff is going to make a request in case anybody from the public is listening to move the police chief's presentation items ahead of the budget, so the agenda order will slightly change.
Right. Got that noted.
All
Okay.
right, sounds good.
Okay, so have you already read the notice for closed session?
Yes.
Okay.
We will
And
see you in
we
closed
will-
session. Thank you.
Be back when we're done. We'll go to see Mala's meeting.
So we sign off.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So I will call us back to order. We are reconvening in open session, and I will report out from our closed session that we took no reportable action. And with that, I would indicate for the record, I believe I can do that we're all present, or do we need a roll call, Mala?
I think that's fine.
We can see each other. We know we're all here and live. So, all right. Then I will ask Councilmember Diaz to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. We only have, we should have minutes on here too, shouldn't we?
I think the minutes are probably going to be at the next regular meeting because this is a
Yeah,
special
they're
meeting.
behind trying to get them all out.
That's fine. Okay, so the consent calendar has one item. That's the engineer's report for the Diablo Estates Clayton Benefit Assessment District. Any questions, or do I have a motion for approval?
Move.
I move.
Oh,
Second.
Mayor, I see Holly Tillman has her hand raised. I'm not sure if it's for this item. Holly?
Okay. Holly Tillman, do you have a question on?
It is not.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And so I have a motion by CW and a second by Jeff to approve the consent calendar. Janet, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mayor Pierce. Councilmember Catalano?
Aye.
Councilmember Diaz?
Yes.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Juan?
Aye.
And Mayor Pierce?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And just a note for the record, I think we let most people know, but for the record, we're going to move items 8B and C up ahead of item 8A, which is the budget. These two items, B and C, won't take as long as the budget is likely to. So I know that's what a lot of you are here for, so we will do that. But before that, we have public comment, and this is for any items not on tonight's agenda. And if we can go to our members of the public, if anyone would like to speak under public comment on items not on tonight's agenda, please raise your hand and I will take you in order. And Amy, you are the first one up. Amy, go ahead and speak. Amy, you're mute there.
Now you can hear me. Great.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Heinscheich, and I have lived in Regency Meadows area since 2012. I've owned this home for 8 years, and I would like to say that, to my great dismay, the conversation on Nextdoor, if anyone were to plug themselves into those conversations at this time, they would be led to believe that Clayton is 90% populated by racist folks that don't believe in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm really, really sorry to say that I have seen a lack of leadership about support of Black Lives Matter movement. I think that this city needs to uniformly stand in support of Black Lives Matter and say that we're against racism. I think that leading from the front would be very beneficial at this time to lead our discourse as far as the community. And I'm staunchly in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Our whole country is moving in a more equitable direction, and I'm very sorry that Nextdoor has that discourse, but I think that having a resolution of some sort, or at least a vote on behalf of the council members to say that we support the movement and we believe in the value of Black lives and the defense of Black lives would be very beneficial. I have more to say regarding the conduct of our police department and what happened as far as tear gassing, but I will wait until that item comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amy. The next speaker is Melinda Marion. Melinda, you are unmuted. Oops, got muted again. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pierce and council members, for giving me the opportunity to speak again about racism in Clayton. There is no denying there is a problem with racism in our community. Events in our community have caused the media to descend on our little town and highlight incidents surrounding the topic of racism. As the country is enraged and people cry for change, I am asking again, what is the city of Clayton going to do to address the issue of racism? This is something that does not go away. I know that anyone that was at the protest on June 2nd and listened to the stories of the racism that people of color endured in our community will always be remembered. Our community members continue to argue and comment about racism in Clayton on social media as if it were a cry for help. People want something done. As our community leaders, I want to bring this to your attention and ask, what are you doing to address the problem of racism in Clayton? And how can we as a community move forward knowing that our leaders are taking action on this issue? I understand and appreciate there is effort to engage the community with the police department. And I know that the police chief has made a statement against racism. This is a great example, but we want to hear from our council members and mayor that we as Clayton do not tolerate racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. I do not see any other hands raised to speak on items. Nope, Scott Denslow, and followed by Alex. So Scott, you're up next. Got to get him unmuted somehow. Scott? Okay, unmute him. There you go. Scott?
All right, can you all hear me now?
Now we can.
All right, great. Thanks for your time, guys. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke before this very council. I asked that you, the mayor, and the chief of police, hello, I see you there as well, offer an apology to the community for the tear gassing of kids. and for the police focusing largely on the protesters rather than the angry adults acting what many of us would agree was inappropriately. Since that time, no apology has been offered, and what has been offered is a joint statement from both the mayor and the chief of police, essentially saying that what we are doing are the right things. And in many ways they are, but I think in many ways they're not. And I think we have a lot to learn and a lot of people to listen to. One thing that so many of our residents asked recently was that the residents of Clayton and that the leadership of Clayton listen to them. When they've come to me and when they spoke on that stage a few weeks ago, many of them spoke from their hearts about how they felt about policing in this town and about some of the same angry residents that I just spoke of. I honestly believe that the joint statement recently released does not address the concerns of many of the people that I am hearing from and from many of the people that spoke on that stage. It's my personal opinion that this joint statement falls far short of what is needed in order to heal the divide in this community. I'm going to once again request from both Mayor Pierce and Chief Warren that they offer a public apology in terms of the misuse of the police force and the overreaction of force in terms of the tear gassing of the kids. If needed, I would ask you to consult any manuals or education that you may have relating to the appropriate use of tear gas against nonviolent protesters. I'm actually curious what your guidelines offer on that topic. I continue to hear from several residents that they also feel that this apology is necessary. So please, please do not listen to me. Listen to the people that want you to listen to them honestly. Mayor Pierce, you know that I've spoken well of you on many topics in the past, and I'm speaking to you directly right now. There's a divide in Clayton, and because of this, I'm asking you to listen to members of the community that feel that this joint statement is inadequate for the community at this time. Please try to step into another person's shoes and ask if this statement offers the integrity, the honesty, the kindness, and the other values mentioned in our Do the Right Thing campaign. I asked you to especially consider the stated value of responsibility relating to this topic as well. Please, leadership of Clayton, do the right thing. Thank you for your time. And again, I really and truly hope that you're able to hear these words.
Thank you, Scott. That really was a comment on items 8, B, and C rather than on items not on the agenda, but we hear you and I appreciate your comments. The next speaker is K. Alex Maiden-Bailey. Okay, unmute. There we go.
You know?
Yep.
Hi, I want to say off the top, I don't actually live in Clayton. I live across the line in the Ayers area of Concord. But we do, or had been doing a lot of our shopping and dining in Clayton. And I have to say, over the last couple of years, we have done less and less business in Clayton because of racism and also anti-LGBTQ bigotry that our family has experienced and that we've seen others experience in Clayton. When our kids were younger, we would take them to play at the Grove all the time. And on more than one occasion, we would see a family of color completely shunned by all the white families playing in the playground or, you know, in the grassy area and in the fountain area. We stopped eating at Scipolini's 2 or 3 years ago. We were in there with our kids who were fairly young at the time, like maybe 4 and 6. And, you know, there was this big group of people just going on about everyone who wasn't white heterosexual Christian and just really foul language. And I understand this is just one group of individuals, that the city council doesn't control those individuals. But I think it's really important for you all as a council of our neighboring town to step up and set the tone for what is and isn't acceptable in Clayton. Because I will tell you, you know, with every passing year, and especially now that so much consciousness is being raised about the importance of people in color and Black lives in particular, we're frankly not comfortable spending our money and contributing to your tax base from over the line in Concord. I mean, downtown Clayton is closer to my home than downtown Concord, but I feel like Concord is stepping up and doing a lot more than our nearby neighbors in Clayton. So I just wanted to contribute that from over the town line.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Dee Vieira.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so I'm just thinking on diversity and inclusivity. I support Black Lives Matter. As you know, I also support the LGBTQ community. So I've been thinking, I decided to look at the demographics here in Clayton, and we are 81.86% white here. And then there's me, the two or more races at 7.26%. Asians are 6.81%. Black or African American is 1.91%, and other races are 1.19%. And last, Native American is 0.97%. So how to balance these numbers out will need some thought. One way is to continue interviewing and hiring people of color for teachers and in government and local jobs. This in turn will open up the opportunity for them to move their families to Clayton and attend our schools. Perhaps we can think of some incentives for them to come here. Things we can do to become more diverse, a more diverse community. One thing I was thinking is individually we can read and learn beyond what we were taught in school. There's so much that we didn't learn. And another fun idea would be maybe to have a book club with people of color and have an open discussion about, you know, the books on diversity that we've read that would bring us together and have a discussion. And then maybe we can think of having an Embrace Diversity and Inclusivity Day. That would be kind of a fun celebration to think about. And then another idea is having an Embrace Inclusivity Day in the classroom. I'm not sure how that looks yet, but the idea comes from a parent participation program I did years ago, where a parent would have a topic to teach in a class over a half hour, and it had to have something to do with the community and how it works. My topic was on production, so I had decided how donuts are made. I taught teamwork versus doing things alone. It was fun and engaging, and in the end, we all got to eat donuts. Maybe we could do something similar with diversity and inclusivity. We should probably get maybe teachers involved in thinking on that, or I'm just trying to brainstorm here and think of ideas to bring us together to become more diverse and inclusive. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Dee. The next speaker is Michael Broom.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Hi. I'm a 13-year resident here in Clayton, African American, and one of the things that my group, a lot of the people that spoke on Friday, June 5th, I believe it was, talked about doing things here in Clayton. One of the things that we talked about in terms of long-term change, we believe that conversation needs to happen. And we actually agreed as a group that we would be willing to host, say, every month or every quarter, some sort of town hall discussion, say at Endeavor Hall, and record those sessions and share those sessions so other cities can see the conversations that are happening, and not just from a African American perspective, but from different perspectives, from the Asian perspective, the white perspective, from different sexual orientations perspective. And the list goes on, because I think when you look at what's going on, I think people are tired of being treated because of who they are versus just being treated equally as humans. And I get the racial disparity here in the city of Clayton. I came here because I thought that this would be a great place to raise my kids, and it has been. Does it come with challenges? Absolutely. But unless we decide to figure out a way to come up with a way to make things change, having an apology I don't think is enough. I think we need to work on coming up with solutions to drive change. And I think we have enough people in this community who have a large enough network to spread the word. And if we can educate people here in Clayton and we educate our networks, I think the ripple effect will be very impactful. So if you're willing to allow us and support us, I think we should start scheduling and driving discussions about a number of topics, including Black Lives Matter. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael. And I will say, as you are probably aware, we have some friends in common, and several of us are talking about getting those started very soon. So we will keep you on the list. And I see Matt Tillman has raised his hand. Hi, Matt. Got to get you unmuted.
Oh, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I just wanted to convey the importance of leadership through all of this. I think that as a society, we are challenged at the highest levels with what can be perceived as a lack of leadership around around racial issues. In order for us as a community to be able to overcome, or at least to gain any strides around what we are dealing with, to Michael's point, there needs to be a conversation, and a frequent conversation. But at the same time, there also needs to be leadership that's actually pushing this forward. As a resident of this community for over 16 years, we are all here looking at you as the leadership of the community to bring that all together. I think as Black residents, we are definitely going to come together. We are going to have communication and conversations that are going to lead us to that next level of change. But change doesn't happen without the people that we're looking at right here on this screen. It is imperative that you are not only just articulating what's important, but you're also showing that and demonstrating that in your actions. A perfect example of this is your support of the last protest. We saw support versus what took place that Tuesday, which was opposition, as in my opinion. That support helps change the entire dynamics of what we're dealing with today. And without that support, we don't get anywhere. And therefore, we're just going to continue to fight each other to get the respect that we feel that we need. So all that I'm asking for overall is that, yes, we do indeed continue that conversation, but we also need to push things forward as a community. And that really starts from the leadership that you all possess in order to demonstrate to the rest of not only our city, the county, the state, and the country, the fact that Clayton is not a racist town. I hate to say this, but the view of Clayton is that Clayton is a racist town, period. How do we get rid of that view of our town? It starts here with all of you. So thank you for your time, and I hope you take everything I said under consideration.
We absolutely do, Matt, and thank you all for your comments. And I think several of us have had multiple phone calls even today talking about how we carry that conversation forward. What are the mechanics of it, especially in this time of COVID when we can't have a lot of face-to-face meetings, that sort of thing. So we are working on that, and I would say that within the next very few weeks, we will be starting to have some of those public meetings. We're talking with some facilitators as well so that we all get some of that help that we need so we can all participate in having a good conversation. And we're looking forward to that and helping to find our way together. So thank you all. I do not see any other hands raised for public comment, so we will close the public comment period. And we will go next to items 8B and C, and I will turn these over to Police Chief Warren. And I don't know if you want to take these together or separately, but have at it.
Good evening. I'll take them separately, and just to introduce those of you that don't know, Sergeant Shaw, he is here with me and is going to kind of assist me with the first presentation here. So I have a slideshow, and I'm going to try and share my screen, so just bear with me for just a minute. And start, there we go. Okay. Okay, in the wake of recent events throughout the country and locally, we have received inquiries regarding a national campaign called 8 Can't Wait and local requests for a restrictive use of force policy. Most of the recommendations outlined in the 8 Can't Wait campaign are addressed in California statutes and our police department policies. The 8 Can't Wait campaign is sponsored by Campaign Zero. Their agenda is to end police violence. The 8 Can't Wait campaign has identified 8 policy recommendations regarding the use of force by law enforcement, and I'm going to go through each of their recommendations and our response to those. The first one is to require de-escalation. The concept of de-escalation has been a fundamental police principle in law enforcement. It is absolutely the responsibility of law enforcement to attempt to de-escalate individuals in crisis when the totality of the circumstances allows an opportunity to do so. De-escalation is an integral part of a police officer's academy and ongoing in-service training. Number 2 is to require warnings before shooting. Law enforcement officers are frequently forced to make split-second decisions in tense, uncertain, rapidly evolving, and dangerous circumstances. Courts across the country at all levels acknowledge that the most significant factor in determining whether force used by an officer was reasonable is whether there was an immediate threat to the safety of officers or others. This issue was part of an extensive and thorough legislation evaluation in California Assembly Bill 392, which amended Penal Code Section 835A and has been in effect since January 1st, 2020. The language as adopted specifically addresses the issue of warnings prior to the use of deadly force. It says, where feasible, a police officer shall, prior to the use of force, make reasonable efforts to identify themselves as a police officer and to warn that deadly force may be used unless the officer has objectively reasonable grounds to believe the person is aware of those facts. The third recommendation is a duty to intervene. The Clayton Police Department policy expressly requires officers to intervene and stop excessive force when they observe it occurring. Number 4 is to require comprehensive reporting. The Clayton Police Department policy requires that all use of force be reported promptly, accurately, and completely. Number 5 is to ban chokeholds and strangleholds. The Clayton Police Department has never authorized the use of chokeholds or strangleholds. Effective June 10, 2020, the Clayton Police Department no longer allows the use of a carotid control hold by officers. Our use of force policy 300 has been updated to reflect that change. The carotid hold is a hold that was previously taught to recruits in police academies, and the hold restricts the flow of oxygenated blood to the brain, causing the person to temporarily pass out. It is not a choke or strangle, which stops the flow of air into the lungs. Number 6 is the request to ban shooting at moving vehicles. And while this may appear to be a simple provision to implement, it is absolutely not appropriate to mandate such a barrier to action when the totality of the circumstances may warrant shooting at a moving vehicle. While all law enforcement agencies strongly discourage shooting at moving vehicles, the best policy is to permit officers to take such action under extraordinary circumstances. Our policy states that it is rarely effective, and the policy limits when an officer can shoot at a vehicle. The United States Supreme Court has decided at least 2 cases since 2015 involving shooting at moving vehicles where the outrageously reckless driving posed a serious threat to the safety of others. Number 7, require a use of force continuum. The use of force continuum concept is an out-of-date and not workable practice when it comes to a variety of circumstances and potential responses and force options that officers must consider and evaluate. One of the many concerns in formulating a workable force continuum is the multitude of issues that arise in structuring and applying such continuums to multifaceted real-life incidents. Keeping any continuum up to date and developing and changing laws is another significant concern. Additionally, there are a number of factors that must be taken into consideration when evaluating the reasonableness of force an officer used that do not fit well into such a format. The evaluation of the use of force requires an assessment of the immediate threat to the safety of officers and others, and there are many considerations that need to be made when using force, such as whether or not an individual is actively resisting, the time available for an officer to make a decision, the severity of a crime, the factors such as age, size, and relative strength of the officer versus a suspect, the number of suspect, weapons involved, injuries, and others, just to name a few. The evaluation of the totality of circumstances as to what is reasonable is complex and does not fit well within the parameters of a matrix or a continuum. Number 8, exhaust all other means before shooting. Asking officers in tense, uncertain circumstances to exhaust any and all possible alternatives is simply not realistic when confronted with immediate threats with only split seconds to make life and death decisions. In dealing with any situation, we require officers to observe and perceive the totality of circumstances that they are facing and evaluate all the dangers and options that exist and make a decision about what is reasonable action to take, and then take that action while being prepared to respond to the unknown and the unforeseen. The Clayton Police Department policy only permits the use of deadly force when an officer reasonably believes that the use of deadly force is necessary to protect the officer or another from a threat of immediate death or serious bodily injury, or to stop a fleeing subject when the officer has probable cause to believe that the person has committed or intends to commit a felony involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious bodily injury or death, and the officer reasonably believes that there is an imminent risk of serious bodily injury or death to any person if the subject is not immediately apprehended. Under such circumstances, a verbal warning should precede the use of deadly force where feasible. California Assembly Bill 392 addressed many of the concerns and recommendations in the 8 Can't Wait campaign and has been in effect since January 1st, 2020. This bill was a police use of force bill that redefines the circumstances under which the use of deadly force by a police officer is considered justifiable. Under this new law, lethal force by a police officer is only justifiable when necessary in defense of human life. So all of the issues addressed in the 8 Can't Wait campaign and our responses are part of ongoing training for all police officers in California, including the Clayton Police Department. And I wanted to take a minute to go over the kind of training that police officers are required to have to give everybody a sense of what goes into becoming an officer. All sworn Clayton police officers are graduates of a California Peace Officer Standards and Training Post-Academy. Post-academies require a minimum of 664 hours of training, but all police departments in California are over 1,000 hours. Most Clayton police officers hired in the last 5 years are graduates of the Contra Costa County Law Enforcement Training Center. This academy is 26 weeks long and is recognized as one of the top in the state. All post-academies require similar standards. In order to graduate, a recruit must pass 42 learning domains with a score of 80% or above. Anything below that is considered failing. Recruits must also pass practical exams in firearms, defensive tactics, practical scenarios, and driving. Once a recruit graduates from the police academy, they enter a field training program. This program is a minimum of 400 hours, and the standards of the program are set by the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training. New officers are paired with FTOs who are senior officers that have extensive experience in training. And those FTOs are required to attend a 40-hour field training class to be certified and must recertify every 3 years. In addition to academy and field training, all Clayton police officers receive a minimum of 24 hours of annual training, which exceeds post requirements for the remainder of their career. Post requires all officers in California to attend 24 hours of training every 2 years. Mandatory topics are set by post each training cycle, and they include such topics as principled policing, crisis intervention and de-escalation, cultural and racial diversity, dealing with mentally ill people, and perishable skills such as driving, defensive tactics, and firearms. And that concludes my presentation on the 8 Can't Wait campaign and our training. So I'm happy to take questions at this point for that part of my presentation.
All right, so questions for the chief from the council. Questions?
Well, not questions, but I would like to make a comment. We've had a succession of police chiefs over the past 20, 25 years, and each one has brought a different skill set and experience level to the position. And I think based upon what we see tonight, that Chief Warren has brought exceptional organizational skills and leadership to the department. One small example is the one that was just most recently mentioned, and that's in the training of use of force and that, where the Commission on Peace Officer Standards, which requires every 2 years, she has accelerated that training to every year, 24 hours of training. So I think our officers are very up to date on what they should and should not do in that regard. I can tell you personally, as a former police officer from Clayton, the amount of training that our current officers give far exceeds what I had to go through. My training academy, for example, was just under 400 hours, and now it's 1,000 hours. My FTO training was 500 to 600 hours, and you can see that's even more accelerated and more in-depth. So I think Chief Warren has brought a lot of experience from her previous roles in law enforcement to really make sure officers treat our citizens fairly, equitably, and reasonably. And I think that this is just another example of how she's bringing that organizational and leadership skill set to the department.
Jim, any other comments by council members? Julia?
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit, and first of all, I appreciate having this topic and discussion today. You know, there's a lot of things happening nationwide, events, and also things that happen in Clayton on that Tuesday, a couple weeks ago. So I think it's important for us to have this discussion to sort of understand, you know, how and when a force is used. So I want to thank Chief Warren for the presentation and for being open, very open to having this dialogue. I think it's very valued by our community. And it's not important not only for us as the council members to understand this, but I think it's very important for all of our citizens to hear from our chief, to understand the context, and to be able to provide some feedback. So much appreciated for having this on tonight. I want to mention just few things. So I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I grew up in a country where police enjoy a great amount of trust by their citizens. Year after year, when citizens in my native country, which is Finland, have been surveyed, approximately 95% of citizens enjoy very high trust in the police officers. I moved to Clayton personally in 2005, and for a number of reasons, and one of those was the safety. You know, this is the town where my kids can, you know, safely bike to their friends' houses and do all those things. And I know that a lot of our residents really value the safety in town, and I know we value our PD for providing for that safety. So what happened on the Tuesday night after 6:40 p.m. Was not great. I know a lot of those kids personally who were tear gassed. I know, and I spoke with the mom whose daughter was hit by the rubber bullet. So I really don't ever want that to happen again, what happened on that Tuesday night in the end. So I wanted to just see if you could maybe, Chief Warren, elaborate a little bit more on that Tuesday and kind of how and what we could have done either better or differently. And I recognize that, you know, we as a city also put our police officers in a very tough spot that Tuesday night. We did not know exactly what to expect for that Tuesday, but I'm hoping you could elaborate a little bit more, because I think part of this presentation, I'm glad to see that we actually already comply with a lot of the 8 Can't Wait campaign measures. So that's great, but if you could elaborate a bit more, that would be helpful.
Some background that I think I've shared with all of council were the events leading up to the Tuesday protest. And the events that unfolded in the days leading up to the protest included direct threats to the businesses in the city of Clayton. And we were receiving this information from a variety of sources and a variety of law enforcement partners. And the information we were receiving was that the group, or some people in the group, on Tuesday night were planning to come to the city to commit unlawful acts. We had to take that information seriously, and we requested mutual aid because we only have a department of 10. And the information continued as the protest developed, that violence was going to occur, that members within the protest group were inciting others to commit violence. I will say that the majority of people that were there were peaceful, especially the ones that were at the Grove Park, but there was a section of protesters that appeared to come to Clayton with intent to do harm. The officers that were protecting the city from the inciters were faced with a situation where they felt they needed to take the action they did to defend themselves in the city, and that's what they did. And you know, it is unfortunate that it turned out the way it did. There was a lot going on. There weren't very many police officers there for the size of the crowd, and in the end, we protected the city and the citizens of Clayton.
Okay, thank you. And I think we probably have some speakers as well, but like I said, I appreciate having this opportunity to have this dialogue.
Jeff?
Yeah, I had some general questions. I'm assuming that we track statistics over citizen complaints with police interaction. Is that a correct assumption?
That is correct.
Is that published in any way or anywhere that is accessible to the public easily?
No.
Is that, I mean, I think I'm always a fan of information, so I don't know if that is available to be shared. I think there's this, it would help shed light on and give evidence to any perception that exists about the relationship between the police and our community. I think that could be helpful if that's available. And I assume that there would also be similar information regarding like records of, you know, force used or weapon deployment or things like that of that nature. My understanding, I've been a resident for a little over 10 years now, is that it's fairly infrequent that we need to even exercise force at varying levels. So I'm not sure some of the things that are addressed in the 8 Can't Wait campaign that you spoke about. I think that they are sound, some of them are sound principles, but they seem to not have direct applicability in our case just because of the infrequent nature of our scenario. Would you?
Yeah.
Would you think, is that a fair assessment?
I think that's fair, and I can say that since I've been here, which is 2.5 years, we have completed one investigation for misconduct, and we've received one other since since June. So in 2.5 years, the department has received 2 formal complaints.
Okay. I just had one other question. I don't know if it's to you or to Mala. It's probably to Mala. There's been a lot of talk about qualified immunity. And my question, I think qualified immunity as a construct of the court is not something that we have the ability to influence directly. But my question is more along the lines of, does a municipality have the ability to waive qualified immunity if it so chooses?
Maybe you're thinking of it in a more of a settlement context.
Well, qualified immunity is
I mean, there would be no need if we were immune from liability. Hypothetically, I'm not sure exactly what you're speaking to. Then there would be, I mean, procedurally, there'd be no reason to waive that because that would be a defense to the city and would protect the city.
Exactly. I understand that it is a defense in 1983 cases. So my question is, if the court, I know that there's legislation that talks about qualified immunity right now, and there's talk about it. But beyond that, does a municipality have the ability to waive if it so chooses?
I haven't seen that. I would probably need to double check and do some research, and it would be a little bit out of context. Maybe we can talk on a more specific nature of what you're looking for.
Okay.
Other comments, questions by council?
I just want to say that, my family is law enforcement family. That's my family's background. Various police officers and then also military police officers. And I have a lot of respect for what the police do on a daily basis, and I have a feel for what it is that they do, having to make decisions on the fly. That being said, what happened on the 2nd was a mistake. We all know it was a mistake. And I'm just not sure that an apology is enough at this point. I know there's been some call for that. I don't live in the past. And I think that our actions on the 5th showed that we are ready to make a change. I think the chief being as open as she has been and is still open to more conversation, and I know we're going to be talking about this in a little while, is very commendable. It's not going to please everybody, but we're going to take these steps one little step at a time, just like we did with the LGBTQ Pride celebration. We're going to take these things one step at a time, and we're going to make some valid change. And I know we'll be talking about this in just a little while, but I just wanted to say that we're not going to live in the past on this. We're going to move forward.
Thank you, CW. Any other questions or comments before we go to public comment? So far, we have 5 speakers, so we will go to public comment on this item, and let's keep it to the 8 can't wait. We do have one more item that the chief will address, and that's to enhance community engagement. So let's gauge which one your comments apply to. So for the 8 can't wait, public comment, Bassam Altwell is the first speaker. There you go, Bassam.
Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chief Warren. And I listened to the presentation of 8 Can't Wait, and my questions is really related to the events on Friday. I don't know if they fit into the 8 Can't Wait, but I'll put them here, and then you could either address them or move them to a different section. The protest on Friday, while I was coming down to the protest, there was a couple of street closures. And actually some streets were blocked by citizens. I should call them vigilante. And one of them was Stranahan, and the other was on Oak Street. And I would like to know if those street closures were permitted, and if they were not permitted, are the police investigating those street closures or not? Coming from being as a child survivor of civil war and seeing people killed on street closures like that, it's not a good sign to look at. And that's really my questions regarding the street closures, specifically on Stranahan. I don't know the people on Oak Street if they were undercover police, but I know the people on Stranahan, I know them personally. They were not, they were just citizens of Stranahan that closed the streets. The Oak Street street closure actually were extremely rude to some people that I know personally, and there was some verbal exchange between them. So I would like from Chief Warren if she could maybe explain that. The second question is regarding the 8 Can't Wait as well. On Tuesday, there were some officers and of Clayton Police Department, not the Sheriff Department, and I could share the name privately, I don't want to share the name here publicly, that prevented some Clayton citizens who live on Oak Street to go to their house on Oak Street prior to the gas, which made them, a woman and her child, which made them go around while they have not treated the others or the counter-protesters in the same way. So Mr. Diaz said that treat citizens fairly and equally. And I don't think that officer treated the citizens fairly and equally, and he was actually rude and condescending to this person and her child. I could share the name later on, but those are my two questions to the chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bassam. We'll take all the questions and take notes, and then we'll let the chief address the concerns all at one time. So our next speaker is Kim Newman. Trying to get you unmuted here. You just disappeared from my screen. I don't see, there she is. Kim Newman was at the top. You get her? There we go. Kim, can you talk now?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Just barely. You sound like you're a long ways away.
How about now?
That's a little bit better.
Okay. I just wanted to ask the chief about the training that happens and whether there is diversity and sensitivity training that's incorporated in that training. We have lived in the Clay Court area off Pine Hollow for about 7 years. My 17-year-old son was pulled over in Clayton riding his bike home from Diablo View when he was 13 years old. He was also pulled over again as a busser from Moressi's, driving home less than a mile to our house. He was stopped because they weren't sure if he belonged in the neighborhood. It was petrifying for an African-American male to be pulled over at midnight and beyond, coming up Pine Hollow. And I want to know what kinds of training are happening for the officers beyond de-escalation, beyond all of that stuff, but really about understanding diversity and understanding how to approach kids that are in the area of different colors, and how they are dealing with that overall. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. We made a note of that, and the chief will address that when we get done with public comment. So the next speaker is, Bassam has already spoken on this one. So Catherine Paulson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Catherine.
Hi, my name is Catherine Paulson, and I live in Clayton. I just wanted to comment on what Chief Warren claims is the department's stance on de-escalation. Her comments that in the end of the protest, they kept the citizens safe, and Councilmember Diaz's comment that the Concord police treat citizens fairly, equitably, and reasonably, and Councilmember Catalano's comment that the police keep our citizens safe. I have to disagree with all of that. If it's true, why did the police only attack the Black Lives Matter protesters and not the counter-protesters at Knesset that were there at the same time breaking the same curfew? What happened was not de-escalation, fair, equitable, reasonable, or keeping citizens safe. It was a brutal attack. The city needs to promise this will never happen again. It was an embarrassment to Clayton. It showed the whole world which side Clayton took, and it was the side of white supremacists instead of the literal children standing up against police brutality. Councilmember Wolf, I appreciate your comments on how an apology isn't enough, that what we need is valid change. I agree. Let's change this so it never happens again. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Catherine. The next speaker is Matt Tillman.
So as we as a community are talking about, what the police department is doing, I think it's very important for us to make it very clear. We've got people in this country, and I want to name them out, with their cities. Louisville, Kentucky, Breonna Taylor, Minneapolis, Minnesota, George Floyd, Atlanta, Georgia, Rayshard Brooks. These are very large police departments that one would assume the officers have gone through very similar, if not the same training that we're talking about today. What I would really like addressed is what is the difference in the training that our officers are going through, if any at all, that protect Black people from the same thing happening to them here. Kim Newman just made a comment about the fear that her son just went through on several occasions from the age of 13 to 18 in this town. As a Black resident in this town, we must be heard. This is a concern. And again, I implore the leadership of this town to stand firm, have a position, and help us understand what is different. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And the next speaker is Matt Foley. Can you get him unmuted, Laura? Matt Foley needs to be, there you are. Now you can talk, Matt. Matt, your turn.
My question is in regards to the use of force. Are there statistics? Is it tracked what officers are injured in their use of force? What hours need to be recognized that the officers do sustain? I'm trying to talk.
Matt, you're breaking up.
Hey, Matt, we're not hearing you.
Yeah, he dropped off now.
Okay, if Matt gets back on, we will try to get him keyed up again. So let's go next to Amy Hines-Shake.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me comment. My name is Amy Hines-Shike, and as already stated, I have lived in the Regency Meadows area of Clayton for 8 years, since 2012. I am a graduate of Leadership Contra Costa from 2018, and part of that program is to do a ride-along with your city's police department, which I was able to do. I rode along with Clayton Police Department for just 2 hours of the officer's shift, and it was, I was proud at that time to be a Claytonian. I thought that she was very professional. Unfortunately, I'm very sad to say that I was not proud to be a Claytonian on June 2nd, 2020, on the Tuesday. I am very sorry to say, though, that the 8 Can't Wait campaign, when checked against the behavior that was displayed on June 2nd, 2020, I heard what Chief Warren said, that we have all these policies, we've got it all under control, check, check, check. You know, almost all 8 of them, they were in agreement or the policy was in alignment, but the actual fact of the application of what happened in real life was, first, de-escalation did not happen. Actual escalation happened. So the penalty for children and for protesters not adhering to a curfew is not use chemical weapons on the protesters, okay? That's the first thing. I should say that I'm a little seasoned on this. I've protested in many cities around the country, and as part of my job, because I'm a union organizer. And de-escalation is something that you can really
use some help on and conforming to your own policy if you believe that the policy for Clayton Police Department is to de-escalate. That didn't happen on June 2nd, you escalated. The second one is to do a verbal warning before shooting. That for the 8 Can't Wait campaign doesn't just mean live ammunition, it means all shooting. So that's including tear gas canisters, that's including rubber bullets or foam pellets that you used, and there were no verbal warnings. So please check yourself against your own policy. You're asserting that there was a policy there, that you did a verbal warning. There was no verbal warning. There's actual video footage of this. We can check it, and it did not occur. Third, intervene and stop excessive force. I didn't see anybody intervening saying don't tear gas and use chemical weapons against peaceful protesters and saying that is an escalated use of force, don't do it. I didn't see anybody doing that. I was not there. I'm pregnant, and very unfortunately I was concerned about the excessive use of force, and so I did stay home on June 2nd, but I feel like that was for a good reason, because the overwhelming overreaction from our police department was very upsetting. Fourth, the comprehensive reporting. I just think that it was a really good thing that the KTVU channel cameras were rolling at that time, because that's how we know what really happened. I did not see any reports or any officers raising their hands saying what we did was wrong, and it was wrong. Fifth, banning the chokeholds. I'm glad to hear that that's a ban that we have, and also on the Carteret holds. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope that that's something that is not just on paper that you're saying that you're committed to, but it's something that's in practice. We don't want to see that in our city. Sixth, prohibiting the shooting at moving vehicles. I heard what you said about that. The use of force continuum. I would just like to put the one name out there. I heard what Matt Tillman said about several names, but there was a young black man, 23 years old. His name is Miles Hall, and he was having a mental health episode in 2019, actually June 2nd of 2019, and he was shot to death in Walnut Creek. And I got the quote from Chief Warren that a use of force continuum is old, outdated. We don't think that it applies. But as far as somebody having a mental health breakdown, do we have a way to understand that that should not be we execute a person in the street for that? There's ways to really address that. I would hate to see a Miles Hall type of situation happen in Clayton, and based on what our policies are in writing versus what we actually do in real life, I am not confident that we would not see a Miles Hall situation in Clayton, California, and that is very disturbing to me. Number 8 is exhaust all other means before shooting. Again, the 8 Can't Wait campaign does not just mean shooting live ammunition. It means shooting tear gas canisters. It means shooting rubber bullets and the foam pellets. And exhausting other means before shooting means if there is a violation of a curfew, you use that as an opportunity to ticket. It's a ticket. It's not let's use chemical weapons on people. So I'm very, very disappointed. And I heard what you said, that you believe that a lot of these are in policy or in law. I did work on the AB 392 campaign. And I think that AB 392 is relevant here, and also your internal policies are relevant, but I did not see that displayed on June 2nd. You violated your own policies, so that needs to be examined. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And the next speaker is Kay Alex Maiden Bailey.
Oh.
No, I'm sorry. I forgot to lower my hand from the earlier public comment. I don't have a comment in this section. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. And then the next speaker is Scott Denslow. Your hand is up.
Thank you, guys. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
All right. First, I want to thank Chief Warren. I know I was a little bit hard on you earlier, so I do want to thank you for at least listening to and taking the time to address some of these points and some of the concerns brought about by some of the members of the community. I do appreciate that. Now, after hearing your words tonight, I do appreciate the new campaign. It is a great starting point, but we really need, as the last speaker said, the officers to adhere to these policies, right? We need accountability. we've heard a lot about, or we heard a lot earlier about how much training our officers go through, how it's a tough job, how wonderful they are. We all know this. We all know that's the case, right? But that's not the issue right now. The issue is that some of our citizens just don't feel welcome in their own community. They're telling us this. Just listen to Kim Newman's words earlier about feeling utterly petrified when her son was being pulled over. Try to put yourself in her shoes or in someone else's shoes and what they might be feeling when this happens to their kids. It's a completely different experience than what many of us go through. They're also telling us that they're feeling that they're policed differently. These are members of our community. Listen to what Catherine said earlier relating to one of our council members' comments. It's shameful in many ways that some members of our leadership can think right now that all of the members of their community are treated, I believe the quote was, fairly and equitably, when all of this is going on, when the counter-protesters were ignored by the police and the protesters were treated the way they were. So I'd ask that you adhere to these new policies. That's the most important thing. To build upon this, I'd really also like to follow up on Michael's idea about the town hall forums. I know Julie's been talking to some people, and I know there's a lot of talk about this. That's, again, a great starting point. I look forward to hearing more about this going forward, and I'm really encouraged by the thought. We just need to bring it to action now, and maybe these forums will allow for a better relationship between the police and all, I reinforce all, of the members of our community. But it all starts with listening, and I look forward to doing so. And I would ask that our leadership also use this as a listening opportunity so that it will drive their actions. Again, thank you for your time, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. The next speaker is Michael Broom.
Hi. This question is for Chief Warren. As an African American, one of the challenges we believe that law enforcement has is when they come to a situation and there's an African American involved, there's a preconceived notion about who and how they will react to a situation. So my question is, what training are you guys engaged in to change that mindset of officers going forward? Thank you for my question.
Okay.
Tyler, muted.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And Matt Foley, you're back. Let's see if you can speak this time. We can hear you.
How's that?
That's much better. Thank you.
Oh, no, I just want to put the support out there for the police. And the question is, in regards to they can't wait, are numbers kept in regards to officers injured in the line of duty when using force by the suspect? That's the one question. And the other statement is, I was down there on the Tuesday night in question. I heard the warnings. I left. That's what a reasonable citizen will do. That's why the laws are there. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And the next speaker is Melinda Marion. Melinda, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Police Chief Warren, I'm not real prepped on this, but just hearing everyone, I've spoken at previous city council meetings, and one thing that really concerned me, and I'm sure you've seen this video, this was not the KTVU video, but it was a civilians video, and what it showed was that there was a group of anti-protesters in front of Knesset's, and specifically it was an incident where this man in a white t-shirt was yelling out the N-word and inciting violence against the protesters. And these were young protesters, and supposedly he was inciting violence towards a young woman. And then you see in another video, and these people are all in the same position, and there's a police officer that is not using the tear gas, but he's actually over by, like, across the street from Knesset's, and you have civilians saying to the police officer, why aren't you doing anything about these hillbillies? Why aren't you doing anything? And he has his back turned towards them, and he throws up his arms as to say, like, you know, there's nothing to do. So when we talk about de-escalation, we had, you know, I didn't really see, I wasn't there, but from the videos, it, you know, didn't seem like these, you know, young protesters were actually the threat. I feel like these anti-protesters were more of a threat while they were inciting violence, while using hate words. So my question to you is, if you had seen that video, why didn't your police officer do something to de-escalate that situation?
Thank you, Melinda. And the last speaker I have showing here is Samantha Sexton.
Hi, this is actually David Sanchez, Sam for my wife.
Oh, okay.
So 2 things I want to mention. The first thing is, it sounds like Chief Warren's statements were that she stands by the use of chemical weapons on Tuesday the 5th. So my question is to the council, will you disallow the use of chemical weapons in the city of Clayton? Secondly, my question is, there was a public statement put out, I believe by the police, maybe by the city council as well, that the reason that the counter-protesters were not treated equally was because they were on private property. So my question to you is, they were definitely there during the gassing. So when they left to go home, did you gas them as well? That is all. Lastly,
He had something else that he was trying to say.
Lastly, I'd like to say that to all the members of our community that are people of color and allies of people of color, I want everyone to know that we do embrace you and we stand in solidarity with you.
Okay, thank you, David. And the last speaker is Dee Vieira, and then Terry Denslow.
Hello, Council. Dee Vieira. My question's for Chief Warren. I was just curious, how much of the police training hours, and I might have missed this in the presentation because I was having some technical difficulty, how much of the police training hours are dedicated to human development and psychology? And are there hours dedicated specifically for the youth? I ask because having a daughter who is currently working on her master's in psychology, has had many courses in this field over the years. It takes a long time to get this experience. So I'm just curious, how much experience do these officers get in this part of the field, in their field? That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. And Terry Denslow.
Okay, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, so a lot of what I wanted to say has already been said. I just wanted to reiterate a point that, you know, I read the section, and Chief Warren, you know, I know that you work super hard, and I know that the department, you know, I've always had really positive things to say. I think I was at the protest, and I questioned the use of force aspect of gassing the protesting kids, and whether that was actually de-escalating the situation when the officers were kind of pushing forward, you know, and I heard the warnings that they were past curfew, but the thing that kind of stood out to me that night was when I watched the evening news that night. You know, Clayton's protests were kind of front and center on the news, and it stood out a little bit like a sore thumb because some of the other counties had really gone above and beyond on de-escalating the protests and that they were having in their cities, and so just something to kind of consider there. And then the concept, the topic someone mentioned earlier about Miles Hall. So I work with Ton Hall, Miles's mother, and she came and talked to our team earlier this week about her experience with the local police in Walnut Creek and her experience being an African American person living in Walnut Creek. And the thing that kind of saddened me a little bit was they were really, really engaged with the police and really engaged with the community. And she told our team at work that she did that because she was in fear, being an African-American woman in a largely white community. And so and what happened with Miles is something that she would have never expected would have happened in Walnut Creek. And so when I hear a lot of our people of color in Clayton, expressing some of the same concerns, and I see the action that we had on the first night of the protest, it just makes me want to stop and pause for a moment and understand what we can do to change that narrative and change that relationship. So I appreciate the things that you've brought forward, both in this discussion and the next discussion, and I hope it'll bring about some good change for the community.
Thank you, Terry. I don't see any other hands raised right now, so I'm going to close public comment on this item and bring it back and let the chief address some of the concerns, maybe not every specific ones line by line, but some of the general concepts. And let me start with asking a question of the chief. And that is, what chemical weapons and other methods of force are we using in Clayton? What are we trained on? What do we carry? What can we use by our force?
I'm going to let Sergeant Shaw answer that question. He is one of our instructors. So
very good.
Our officers are trained in the use of pepper spray, and that's something that all police officers carry. That's really our only chemical weapon that we as a police department have.
So our police force does not carry tear gas nor rubber bullets. Is that correct?
We don't carry tear gas. We do have the what's called a foam baton, and then we also have, which is a less lethal option, and we also have what's called a beanbag round. That's one of our other less lethal options. The beanbag is it's a standoff, less lethal type of weapon that's used. It's essentially very similar to using a baton, but it fires a small bag that has shot in it. Essentially, it's sealed up and it's designed to disarm somebody from a distance. Somebody that may have like a knife or something like that. The foam baton is fired out of the 40 millimeter. It's also a standoff weapon that's used to deter somebody from picking up a weapon or throwing something at us or something of that nature.
Okay, and then what about the smoke grenades and the flashbangs?
We do not have any.
Okay.
And just for the full record, I know it's common practice, but the police department here, like others, carry the tasers too.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
But you also carry mace and pepper spray?
We just have pepper spray. We don't.
Okay.
Mace isn't used much anymore.
Thank you.
Okay, Tuya?
So can I ask a follow-up to that? So the tear gas that we had and some of the riot gear that was available on that Tuesday night, was that brought on by the additional resources?
yes, that was brought by our mutual aid partners.
And then the decision to use them, sort of, I guess, who made the call to use them, or how did that come about?
Mutual aid works when we bring in mutual aid. Those people are led by a supervisor, and that supervisor online on the scene makes the determination as to what type of force is necessary for the situation they're facing.
Okay.
And I would just expand on that just a little, or ask the chief to, because I asked that question immediately afterwards, and how that mutual aid situation works. So if you would explain what happens when we request mutual aid and why.
So mutual aid is part of, basically it's a statewide system, and it's broken up into regions. And we have a mutual aid agreement in our county. All the police departments do with the county, their Department of Emergency Services. We could ask for mutual aid for a variety of things, including law enforcement. So we put in a request through the county emergency services. We explain what our situation is. We explain how many personnel we think would be necessary. And then the mutual aid coordinator at the county takes our information into consideration. They vet it themselves. They determine if the number we've asked for is appropriate for what the situation we've explained. And then they put out a mutual aid call. There is an entity called the Mobile Field Force, and that is comprised of officers throughout the county. There's about 120 of them. Every police agency has officers on that team. They train at least once a year, if not quarterly. And when situations arise where police are asking for mutual aid police response, they call upon those members to respond, and that team that gathers has their own chain of command and hierarchy. They train together, and when they come to a scene, they operate under their policies and guidelines and training.
And you explained to me that the reason why they operate under their own guidelines is?
They are the ones that are in the situation. They have to be making the decisions on the ground as they are occurring.
So the local agency does not dictate the policies that they are trained under.
Correct.
To another agency.
That is correct.
And the reason for that, as you explained to me, is if everybody had to abide by different rules in different cities, you wouldn't get mutual aid.
That is correct.
Okay.
So another follow-up to that. So I imagine a lot of cities recently have requested mutual aid or have contemplated that. So what line of, are you aware of any dialogue that's happening in the mutual aid agencies in terms of improving some of the things that have happened, or do the cities have any dialogue with them? Do you know anything more about, so how does one impact the decisions that the mutual aid agencies make?
Well, these are all pretty recent events, and we have not debriefed yet, but I participate in monthly county chiefs of police meetings where these topics do come up. But we're talking about things that have just happened in the last few weeks, so we have not met as a group to talk specifically about that, but that is the forum where we would discuss issues like that.
Are you hearing from, because so I think Walnut Creek had a discussion about this recently. So I think a lot of police departments and cities are having some dialogue. Are you aware of other cities having an interest in sort of having further dialogue in this?
From all of the police chiefs that I've spoken to, and I've also been on a number of conference calls from the California Police Chiefs Association, every police chief has expressed a desire to find ways to better serve our communities through engagement and listening and changing policies and practice that will ensure trust in the communities. We all agree that law enforcement can and will do better.
Okay. Any other questions by the council right now, or I'm going to go to the notes that I jotted down, and I'm sure the rest of you were probably taking notes as well. There were a few specific questions that were asked. One of them was about the street closures that were observed. Were those done by the police department, or were those done by others?
I can answer that.
I actually...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got several communication from residents in those neighborhoods who requested that the city close their streets. And I passed that along to city maintenance, who agreed that that would be the case. So The idea that citizens on their own closed their own streets with city-provided A-frames is incorrect. There were a number of streets that I think the residents were requesting overwhelmingly that their streets be closed.
I got those as well, but I was asking the chief about who was in.
And I can actually follow up on that, Mayor.
Yes.
As the acting city manager, I did authorize maintenance to take those barricades out to those 3 neighborhood locations. It was Coal Mine, Easley Drive, and Stranahan. And that was with the proviso that we did not have maintenance staff, nor did we have police officer staff to man those barricades to ensure that the residents who lived there, because it was a commute time to, those that were working or running errands, to make sure that they could get home to their neighborhood street, to their home, so that residents in the neighborhood appointed 2 or 3 people to staff the barricades to make sure that the homeowner that lived in the area could come home. Now, the one on Stranahan, when they talk about somebody in uniform, there happened to be a resident in Stranahan that works for a private security company that had just gotten off work and came home to volunteer on that barricade and still had on his uniform. But it was a private security company that he works for. He was not there by the company or paid by the company to be there. He just happens to live in that neighborhood and work for private security. But those were deployed by maintenance, and they were picked up by maintenance.
Tuya?
So if the city provided the barricades, what authorization did we give to the residents who were manning the barricades? Did we authorize them to take any action or to prohibit some people from passing barricades?
Yes, we did, just like we do for other community events where only the residents that live in the neighborhood could get in during that defined period of time, which went from, I think, around, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 o'clock to about 7:30 or so.
So how were the gatekeepers going to decide who lives there and who doesn't?
They all knew all of their residents in their neighborhood. Coal Mine Court has about 15 homeowners. Easley Drive, the residents there are very familiar with that street being closed. They could go the back way in, and they were directed that way by the residents who were manning that barricade. And the Stranahan people, again, it's a neighborhood of about 31 homes maybe, I think it is. And the residents there knew all of their neighbors and worked to allow them in.
Yeah, and I'm sure, so what this comes into is, we heard earlier how, for example, Kim Newman's son who worked at Morezi's gets stopped, and it looks like he doesn't belong. That's the assumption. So, putting up barricades and, so there's easily, I think.
I will say it was a quick decision based upon the fact that all the streets were closed downtown and concerned about cars coming in from outside the area, seeing what had happened in our neighboring communities with the amount of vehicle traffic coming in, and the neighbors being concerned that they were so close to downtown that their neighborhoods would be overwhelmed with parking and parking blocking driveways. So it was a decision made that afternoon with the involvement and coordination with neighbors in those immediate areas that would be able to access and let their neighbors in.
Yeah, no, I understand what happened, but I want us to be cognizant about future events, as in, when we empower people to say you belong here and you don't, how do we confirm that so that we're not,
we don't have the staff, just like 4th of July. We rely upon volunteers to man certain locations and provide access to neighbors, with one of the neighbors being out there to verify that that's somebody that lives in the neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of you belong or you don't belong. I think it's just a question of closing access. I was out and about during that time, and I spent some time chatting with some other folks. And I think in a period of 10 minutes, there were no less than half a dozen cars that would drive by cursing at the people on the barricades and, probably going in excess of 50, 60 miles an hour on a 25-mile-an-hour street. And I think that's the exact thing that people were concerned about, and it appears rightfully so. That's a small concession that I think is valuable to some of the residents in that neighborhood.
No, and I appreciate that, and I think that's valuable. Like I said, I think we want to ensure safety for all, but it means all. So, and we've heard a lot recently how some of our citizens do not feel that they're being treated equally. So I just want all of us to be cognizant of that. so that going forward.
Okay. I'm scanning through my notes to look at some of the other actual questions. Most of them were actually statements. One of the questions was, is there diversity training for the PD? That was Kim Newman's question. Several others asked what kind of diversity training there is. That was tied in with the psychology training. Can you address that, Chief?
Sure. So the 24 hours of mandated training, this last cycle included 8 hours of implicit bias training. So that was really 1/3 of the required training in the last training cycle. So all officers have been to the 8-hour implicit bias training class. And that discusses, how our experiences impact our thinking and brings to the forefront really all of these issues that are talked about. So it was a full day discussion on that, and I'm sure that that's going to be included in the next training cycle as well. That is a forefront topic.
Okay. One of the other sort of themes running through this was the perceived difference, and I think there was truly a difference in how the protesters were addressed versus the counter-protesters. Can you address that at all? I mean, you and I talked about that the next day, about in retrospect, the optics were not good, and that perhaps it would have been better if there had been an equal number of officers facing each way. Sure. But that's in retrospect, and you didn't see it when it was happening. But what's your response to some of those concerns?
So some of it is a numbers issue. We really did not have that much staff down there, and so it's about where your attention is most drawn, which was to the larger crowd. Part of the issue was the people in question were on private property. And that's a bit different. They were asked a number of times to go inside. Eventually they did, but it really was limited resources and divided attention. And quite frankly, it wasn't just the large protest group, but there were quite a few bystanders that posed a third challenge, and they were egging on both the protesters and what people are calling the counter-protesters. So it was a challenge for the limited number of police officers that were there, that were doing the best they could to try and bring calm to the group, which, clearly was a challenge.
Okay.
Sorry. So hindsight is perfect. Hindsight is perfect, but in terms of the fact that some of the counter-protesters were on private property, I mean, they were clearly also past the curfew, and, it was a commercial private property, so none of them were going to sleep at the property. They were going to have to exit the private property and at some point past the curfew. So I think that's the, I appreciate the explanation, but I think that's the crux of this, that, they were still also past the curfew. Even if they were on private property at the moment, they were not going to be on private property at some point when they left.
Right. They did though, upon request, they did go into the building. And now, of course, they had to leave at some point, but they did go into the building. And they were allowed to leave just like everybody else in the end. Nobody was ticketed or arrested. Counter-protesters or protesters, nobody was.
Okay, another one of the questions was, is there a difference in training here versus in some of the large cities that we've seen on the news?
I can only speak to California. I do not know what the training requirements are in other states.
Okay. And I'm sure I'm missing someone else's question versus comments. I will actually just make some comments here. Several of our speakers have talked about the discussions that are in the process of beginning right now. We've had a couple of unexpected delays in getting those started, but we are very seriously looking at trying to put together some form of a town hall Obviously, we can't have hundreds of people in a confined space or even in a public space right now because of the virus. So trying to figure out how logistically to have some kind of an online town hall, something that makes sense, something that actually is somewhat logical so that we can have a good flow of information, perhaps a moderated webinar on Zoom or something. So we're working very actively on that. We're hoping to have another meeting this weekend, indeed, with some of the people who are trying to put that together. And we're hoping for that to be a mostly organic function and not necessarily a city-sponsored function. That hasn't been decided yet either. There are a lot of folks besides city folks who are interested in that. And so we're talking about a lot of different possibilities. So I hope that gives people some hope. I know we have one more item here, but and that kind of leads us into that. So Chief, why don't you go ahead and go to item 8C, which is how to enhance community engagement.
Okay. So, as we've been talking about tonight, over the last few months, our community has experienced traumatic and unprecedented events. And in the wake of these events, particularly in our community, we're looking at ways to enhance our community engagement. Our goal is to provide a forum for information exchange and transparency, to increase public awareness and education, to increase trust between the community and the police department, and to use the community input to solve problems and identify best practices. To accomplish these goals, I've identified 3 viable options, and I'm seeking your input, the council's input, on which option would best meet the needs of the Clayton community. The first option is to host town hall meetings. As most people know, town hall meetings are an informal public meeting or forum focused around shared subjects of interest. These meetings are a way to inform people about emerging issues, identify and implement solutions to current problems in the community, to get messages out to the community, to exchange information with the public about potential community interest topics, and to identify individuals and organizations for future partnerships and collaborations. Town hall meetings or community forums would be fairly easy to coordinate and could be scheduled on a semi-regular or as-needed basis. These meetings could be tailored to the current issues in the community and would allow for a wide variety of topics to be discussed. Depending on what the topics that need to be addressed are, other city staff such as council, city manager, maintenance, community development, etc., could participate in the forums to also exchange information and solve problems. The second concept is to form a Chiefs Community Advisory Board. A number of police agencies in California have done so. I've given you examples from the Walnut Creek Police Department and the Buena Vista Police Department on how their Chiefs Advisory Board works in their cities. I spoke to the Chief of Walnut Creek about his advisory board, and he felt that it's been a great tool for him to engage with a broad representation of the community. He has used the advisory board as a mechanism to field questions about police operations and present new ideas for vetting prior to bringing them to City Council. He explained that the Chiefs Community Advisory Board does not have power or authority to investigate, review, or otherwise participate in matters involving specific police personnel or specific police-related incidents. In Walnut Creek, the board meetings are closed meetings which are not open to the public. The board's role is an advisory committee, and the board is intended to be an expression of the community's viewpoints. The Chiefs Advisory Board would take some time to implement, as we would need to identify who the members are, and a process would need to be put in place to approve the members and to put the board together and provide agendas. This would be a more formal method of gathering and exchanging information within the community, and it would be an opportunity for community members to work closely with the police department. The third viable option would be to form a public safety subcommittee. The council could form this committee, the subcommittee, and it would be comprised of 2 council members who would act as a liaison with the police chief and the police department. We would meet as needed in a public forum, and the subcommittee would work directly with me on items of public interest. This model has worked well in other cities and is a way to vet and review ideas prior to being presented to the full city council. It would allow the city council to work directly with the police department on current issues within the community and would be a forum to solve problems and exchange information. That's the end of this report.
Very good. Questions, comments from council members? Tuya.
So in terms of the examples, for example, from Walnut Creek having the advisory board and Lafayette having the public safety subcommittee, do you know how long they've had those running? So it sounds like both cities have liked those formats, but I'm wondering how long they've been running.
The Walnut advisory committee has only been running since the beginning of the year. So I believe they've only held 2 meetings. The public safety subcommittees, I believe those are longer term, but they're really just only meet, as needed.
Other questions or comments from council members?
Sorry, go ahead.
So just on the community advisory board, what do you think is sort of the ideal number of board members for that, I guess?
Walnut Creek has 16. I think that's they're a much bigger city. I would say 8 to 10. A representation of the city, some business owners, some homeowners from different sections of the city. Maybe some youth. Try and get a broad cross representation. But I think 16 for a city our size would be large to manage.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my comment was, or my question was along those same lines. And where would we then come into that if we were to do this committee as far as the council? How many? We couldn't do 3 of us at one time,
No, the council would not be involved in the Chiefs Advisory Committee. That's a committee that's the public advisory to the chief. The other 2 forums would be council involvement.
My concern with the town hall is that we would wind up with the same rotation of people over and over again. And people that are now concerned would be concerned, and those that aren't won't be. And I think that somehow we have to find a way to reach the broader community. And I'm not sure that initially the town hall is the right thing to do. That may be something that comes out of the advisory committee. But I'm not against town halls. I think they're great as long as you get the participation and get the cross-section of people. So I would be leaning, personally, I think that the advisory committee as a starting point is a really good idea, especially if you get some really good involved differing opinions. And then we can go to a wider format as we go.
I do just want to clarify that if the council authorizes the chief's advisory committee or directs the chief to go set up an advisory committee, it would be subject to the Brown Act.
I have a question.
Well, only if there are council members on it, right?
Well, that was my concern.
No.
Right.
No, it's got to be the chief deciding that she wants to create her own advisory committee. If you direct her to create this advisory committee, it will be subject to the Brown Act. So I just want to be clear on everyone's expectations. If the chief decides that that's a process she wants to do on her own, then it would not be subject to the Brown Act, regardless of the makeup.
What would be the drawback of having it be open to the public?
There wouldn't be. It just is a process, as you're aware. We have agendas. We have, 72 hours notice. So it's more that process of, and until we meet in public, it would be these Zoom type meetings. So it would just be more maybe administrative work than if it was not subject to the Brown Act.
And potentially less candid discussions. Jim?
Yeah, I had talked briefly with the chief regarding this public safety subcommittee, which sounds interesting to me. The question I have is I didn't think it would limit just to the chief and 2 council members. I thought maybe, what's your thought about including members of the community?
Are you asking my thought?
Yeah, correct. On the public safety subcommittee, in addition to the 2 city council members, also including some members of the public, interested members of the public.
I think I have to defer that to Mala. Personally, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know mechanically how that works.
Either one would be subject to the Brown Act, even if it was just 2 council members on just as is. It would be a continuing subject matter, so it would be subject to the Brown Act. If you added members of the public, it would be subject to the Brown Act. So it's really maybe a preference.
But wouldn't that provide at least, and I have no problem with the Brown Act, because if you publicize the meeting, then you're going to get more input and more involvement, and probably a publicized agenda. So Mala, I guess your thoughts are you could expand it and have some interested community members?
You could, or you could, if you wanted to start off with just 2 council members and obviously have it open to the public and then see how that progresses. And if you want to then recruit members of the public to join that committee, that would be another option.
Okay. If not as members, what about a forum there to allow them to address issues or bring things of interest?
They could always do that because it's subject to the Brown Act, so they could always ask you to place items on a future agenda. They'd always have an ability to have public comment. So even if they're not on the committee, they have an opportunity to participate in the meeting.
Have you got any thoughts, Mala, relative to what, because it's mentioned here that Lafayette is doing that. I mean, any experience that you could share with that?
They've had that committee for quite some time. It's been in existence for years. So it's provided a nice forum to discuss these issues. And so that might be a first approach if you wanted to create a committee, is to start something with 2 council members and then see if you want to progress it and add other groups. But they do just have two council members as a standing committee.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, so we're on the questions part, right? What does success look like to you for number 2 versus number 3? The CAB versus the public safety subcommittee. I think number 1, the town hall, is probably addressed by the activities that Mayor Pierce has talked about throughout the meeting. And that could be, it's not just a single event, that's probably a continuum of events. So I'm really thinking about numbers 2 and 3 here. And because in the description, I like concrete goals and things that are definable, and I'm trying to find what success looks like for number 2 and number 3 and what the contrast is.
I lean towards number 3, the Public Safety Subcommittee, because I think it's important that I work with council, because you guys are representing the city, the citizens. And so, I think the Public Advisory Board is an interesting concept that has some validity, but I think for me to work with directly 2 council members who are speaking directly with the citizens to address real specific topics, I think is most productive. And I would lean towards starting there and see how that works, and then think about the advisory board. My perception is that excluding the topic that we've been discussing tonight, there isn't an overwhelming need for law enforcement topics in the city. We have some crime, to address and you know, some parking issues. But it would be good for me to work directly with you guys that are talking to the residents every day. You probably hear more than I do about what their real safety law enforcement concerns are, and would give us a forum to, you know, vet ideas and you know, together, and then come up with solutions together.
Did that answer your question, Jeff?
I mean, it's good information, and I appreciate it. Thank you. It's not really what I was asking, though. I mean, if we go with number 2, what are the outcomes that we would hope to achieve? Versus if we go with number 3, what are the outcomes we hope to achieve? Versus no action at all, I guess, is always an alternative. Like, you know, I look at number 2, and, you know, if I play this out, we identify a large enough swath of individuals that are interested, and we have these discussions. Ultimately, there would likely be some action items that are desired among the group. And so I ask, like, we've heard many suggestions tonight. I've heard other suggestions in other fora. And so I ask, like, if we set it up so that we have suggestions, but we don't execute on them, does that create a situation where people are more upset because they're not seeing what they think they should be seeing? So I don't know if that's a concern for number 2.
My feeling on number 2, let's just maybe take the forum of or the topic of planned demonstrations in the city. I could use the advisory board to talk about what, from their perspective, what they would like to see from the city and from the police department in how the event is planned. But they would be advisory to me. And so, you know, the advisory board would be my interactions with the community. We could even take that topic to the permit parking. It would be my interactions with the residents in various neighborhoods that want to talk about parking programs, and I could vet ideas with them, you know, before I brought them to council. Whereas the public safety subcommittee, I would be working with 2 of you on items that we could involve the community with. So my feeling is the difference between the 2 is the advisory board is just between me and the community, whereas the subcommittee is between me, the council, and the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jim, did I see your hand up? Or CW?
Well, no, but I guess I could. I mean, I just think without community involvement, the subcommittee doesn't really make sense. Am I off base on this?
I don't think we're talking about excluding the subcommittee. If you think back to the ad hoc committee we put together for the Regency Drive,
right,
that involved 2 council members, myself, and the community. That's how I would foresee the public safety subcommittee working.
I see.
Okay, we do have a speaker, and I suspect others will come up as we go to public comment. So, Bassam, you are first up, and that's followed by Melinda Marion.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I want to follow up on some of the answers that Chief Warren gave. 3 points in particular. Point number 1, that the counter protesters were on a private property. I personally, but there are multiple videos, observed that those counter protesters were on the sidewalk. Some of them were on the rocks outside of Knesset. And if they were on a private property after, is that Skip's property? Were they trespassing, or did they have permission to be there? They were not on the private property. Knesset can't hold more than 3 people, and they were over 30 persons. The second line, the police officer, Chief Warren, said that there's not enough numbers. I agreed to that there's not enough numbers, but there was a line of police officers between the two groups of protesters. If every other officer was facing one side, at least they have the opportunity to observe what people are doing. We have videos of people holding sticks or bats or throwing signs that are white supremacy signs. We have videos of that. So an observation could be done. The third point is that everybody were allowed to go home after. That is not true. As I mentioned earlier, there was a police officer who prevented some people participating in the protest to go to their home in Oak Street while allowed others to go to their home regularly. These people has to go a long loop to reach Oak Street. So thank you.
Thank you, Bassam. The next speaker is Melinda Marion.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Melinda.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate what Bassam was talking about. Police Chief Warren, when you say that those anti-protesters were on private property, there is video of specifically when the one anti-protester is yelling out the N-word and inciting violence. He's in the middle of the street. So that's not private property. And so the question is, specifically with that person, the other video shows the police officer having his back towards that person who had just incited violence. So you say there's not enough police officers, but there's the one police officer who has his back towards him and actually has his face towards the group of people that were not presently protesting. They were just standing there saying, why don't you do something about this guy? So I'm kind of tired of hearing that they were on private property, because obviously from the video he was not. There's actually about 4 or 5 of them. They continued to video the tear gassing in the middle of the street freely without being told to disperse and not being tear gassed themselves. So they were not on private property at that moment. Also, there were pictures of people with bats, and I actually saw something that looked like a rifle that was outside of Knesset, was not on private property. So people have weapons, they're walking around with weapons, and there's no attention by the police officers. So that really concerned me. On the topic of forming these subcommittees, when you say that that if you could form a subcommittee with a couple council members, and because those council members represent the community, what I'm trying to understand is I wasn't part of the Regency situation. I know nothing about it, but how was the community involved in that situation? Because if you're talking about us coming to these council meetings and speaking up, I mean, I hear that more people come to the council meetings when you're speaking of development and things like that. But, this small percentage of people that show up to these meetings do not represent the whole. So what concerns me is, I hope there is a public forum where everyone could be heard and everyone has the opportunity, because I actually think there's a disconnect, just from what I'm viewing, between the leaders of our city and the community as a whole. I think it's more important that it's, the larger community is represented in a forum versus just the very few of us who show up to these meetings.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. I don't have any other speakers who have raised their hands on this one. So I'm going to close the public comment and bring this back to the council and see if we want to take action on this tonight, or if we want to get more information, or what's the will of the council?
I'm not sure if what additional information we could get. I think the chief has pretty well outlined 3 viable options. My personal one is number 3, and I do that because I see it as a direct link between the chief and the council members that would be on that. to the community, although I would want to make sure that there is a public opportunity to address this so that their concerns and issues could be brought forward. Similar, and I thought that was a good analogy that the chief brought up related to the Regency Park parking issue, where they had a group of their residents that worked with two of our city council people and them and the chief on addressing that. So that's my thoughts. I'm leaning towards number 3. Thank you.
And those would be public meetings that anyone could attend because they would be
right.
They noticed. Okay. Other thoughts? Jeff?
I'm still thinking. I take the chief's preference very strongly. So I feel like her and the department are well versed in having these discussions and are, you know, I take her recommendation very strongly. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I think I still need to consider for at least a few minutes.
Okay, Tuya or CW?
Yeah, I think for me, so I like options 2 and 3, and I'm sort of trying to decide between 2 of them as well. I mean, what I really want is to have some frequency and regularity, and I think both of those would provide it. I definitely want some accountability out of that process and the ability for the members of the public to participate. So, I mean, I see how option 2, you know, you would have members of the public who are actually part of that committee, so then that ensures participation. But I hear also the chief's preference for number 3, and you know, given that it would be open to the public, we could still get the participation, and that's what I'm looking for, to have a venue for members of the public to participate. So I don't have a huge, you know, difference whether it's 2 or 3. But I think I'm starting to lean more towards number 3.
CW?
Well, the chief was right. Our subcommittee worked well for the Regency parking problem, and going forward, if there is a disconnect, which I will accept that there's a disconnect, I think that the only thing that we can do is to continue to reach out to the public and have them involved. But again, my concern here is the wider range of people, because you know, the people that attend this meeting are very passionate, and some of them upset with what happened on the 2nd and things like that. And I understand that. But how do we get to the people that aren't tuning in right now? That's the key. So if it takes the subcommittee to get that ball rolling, and if we can reach out to the community that way, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that there's a way to publicize these meetings and perhaps come up with subject matter at different meetings that is more targeted, so that there can be an in-depth discussion between the chief and the council members and the public, that they can host a bit of a discussion. You know, I do believe that the town hall meetings are going to happen organically. I know there's a group of citizens now working on that. They're working on finding the right moderator and things like that. So I know that that's going on. And whether council members are involved or not, I think that's something that needs to happen. And I'm fully supportive of that. And I think we can learn a lot there. But I think that's different from this. And I don't think they are mutually exclusive. I think we can learn a lot from each other in either way. So I'm supportive of doing a subcommittee. Mala, would this need to be agendized again for a regular council meeting to appoint a subcommittee to that?
I'm just looking at how we talked about enhanced community engagement. I guess it is a little bit generic, but I don't know how quickly you guys desire to get started on this subcommittee.
Our next.
Well, the description of the subcommittee is listed in the agenda already. So
sorry, I have
and we
too
can
many.
bring back next meeting in a week on Tuesday your updated subcommittee list, and you can appoint if you want, or we can formalize the 2 council members that would be on the subcommittee. You typically do that list in January. Your committee appointments, December, January.
Right.
But that's done by the mayor. So if we're looking at forming a committee right now, I think we need to, amongst ourselves.
Your subcommittees are developed by the mayor in consultation with the city council members and put before the city council for confirmation.
And this is a perpetual committee, not an ad hoc committee, correct?
Correct. It would be a standing committee.
So you would add it to the standing committee list.
I think the way that the agenda reads, it's to provide input and policy direction. It doesn't say appoint a committee or take the formal action. I think we might be safer to wait until July 7th, and then people can consider.
You could even put it on your next Tuesday meeting.
Okay.
On consent, if if that's a desire.
Okay.
But if we put it on consent, don't we need to decide on the 2 people who would be part of that subcommittee?
Yeah, and you could, if there are 2 people who are interested or want to volunteer, then those 2 names could be put on consent. If you want to have another discussion on it, and we can just agendize it as creation of a, I don't know if we have a name for it, a public safety subcommittee, appoint 2 members, we could do that as well.
Well, are they allowed to?
Let me ask you a question. Does it have to be just 2? If it has to be an agendized Brown Act meeting, does it have to be just 2 council members?
No, you could.
It could be a committee of the whole.
Yeah, you could just, you could do 3. You could do as many as you want. We just agendize it accordingly. Sometimes what you're calling a committee of the whole, it's almost like public safety committee / city council, because depending on how many of you.
I get that.
It's like the budget committee is now.
Well, kind of, but it would be a specific agenda and limited to that agenda. I mean, I'm looking.
But I mean, don't you lose? I mean, you lose some of the nature of what you're trying to achieve with a discussion with a smaller group than you have. I mean, it's essentially another council meeting. I think when Carl and I were on the parking one, I mean, we met in a smaller group. We had an agenda, but it was fairly high level, and it wasn't like a take turns, you get 3 minutes kind of discussion. It was like, okay, let's talk, and we could talk like normal people rather than council people. Because I mean, this is not the best way to talk.
I don't disagree, but I'm looking around the council and seeing who doesn't want to be on it.
Well, and typically these subcommittees make a recommendation and then bring it back to the full council. So if you're having, the council almost sit on the subcommittee, it wouldn't do that purpose.
Okay. So
there's still going to be a wide range of discussion anyway, whatever the committee brings back.
Exactly.
What is just give me one more time the focus of this committee? I mean, what's the bedrock of this?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah,
sure.
Probably.
Okay. Well, as I envision it, it would be to discuss matters of public safety.
Right. And this is different than what we were talking about earlier.
Well, it could encompass what we were talking about earlier as well. I mean, when I read the description, it's work directly with the chief, set up community forum, town hall meetings, work on crime prevention proposals, facilitate neighborhood group discussions on specific problems.
Right.
Such as,
inclusion, whatever it is.
Well, there's 2 things identified, but that doesn't mean it's exclusive to those 2 things. It's right. For example, and things along that nature. So I would say you can have targeted discussions or you could have general discussions, but it's really public safety issues that are pertinent and relevant to the community. That's how I'm interpreting it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I would that's how I would envision it as well.
And it could encompass the ongoing issues with the parking problem.
Correct.
And just the difference between the Public Safety Standing Committee, so to speak, and an ad hoc committee that the Vice Mayor was speaking about. The Vice Mayor's ad hoc committee can meet as needed with whatever group of people they wanted to include. This would be an open public meeting, so we'd have a formal agenda and anybody from the public could attend the meeting.
But you're not talking the 3-minute rule, though.
I mean, you could have a different rule, or you could have no rule.
I mean, it could be like you were talking about earlier, what we did on the ad hoc committee, where it's wide open and you talk like people.
And which
and I think the difference is if you do that, the challenge or the thing to be cognizant of is equity, in that you want to make sure that anyone that's present or interested has the same opportunity to speak as anyone else. And I think with our formal meetings here, when we have the 3 minute, we do that here by having the 3 minutes, and everyone gets their 3 minutes to use the 3 minutes. When we were in the ad hoc committee, we didn't have a timer. We just, we talked like an actual human. And so, I think if we have a subcommittee that's, Brown Actized or whatever you want to call it, you have, if you allow longer or more free-form discussion, we just need to be very careful that we are not crowding out folks who want to participate.
Yeah, you could easily have a subcommittee of 2 to meet with the chief and host meetings on whatever the topic. You could meet in a big circle if you wanted to, so nobody is seated in any superior position. You could do a roundtable discussion as long as you don't let anyone dominate that meeting, so you can hear all of the discussion that's going on. That would
and so during those meetings, Carl, you and we essentially moderated and made sure that hey, like this person has something to say, and we should let them say it.
I felt like that forum was very productive because I felt like everybody felt that they were equal. You know what I mean?
I think that's probably the target right there, is that kind of a format.
I do see a benefit in the smaller committee meeting format, because it can produce more of a dialogue and discussion as opposed to here's your 3 minutes, you're done, and that's, so I do like that. I think it's going to be very important for us to have, 2 council members be on it who really are there to listen and engage, and like Jeff said, be equal to everybody and be able to provide that equal opportunity. So I think it's just going to be important as to which of the 2 of us are going to be on it to make sure that committee is successful.
Okay.
Well, no matter what, at least we have a wider range of discussion when you bring it back to the council. So
exactly.
I mean, I'd love to sit on the committee, but I don't know what you're all going to do.
I would I would suggest we agendize this for next week, and everybody think about it and make their best pitch to their colleagues, and we'll figure it out next week. How about that?
Wait, so not on the consent to have the discussion next week?
How are you going to do that? Unless you just want.
I don't know. I thought we would just have it right. I thought we would have the discussion right now and then just decide.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It's fine with me either way. We can do that. I mean, it's already. It is running late for a lot of people, I know. So
yeah, and we still have.
We don't seem to have two volunteers yet stepping forward to put on the consent calendar as yet, and I think the mayor's offering a week for you to contemplate who would like to move on that.
I mean, the thing is, we can't really discuss it, so we can't have that discussion anyways.
On it.
Sorry, Laura, I didn't catch that.
I said you certainly can indicate if you have an interest in serving on the subcommittee. I think
sure.
Councilmember Wolf already bowed out.
What?
I don't think he bowed out. He said he would be interested.
No, I did not.
Oh,
Let me ask this. By a show of hands, who wants to be on the subcommittee?
Do we have to raise our hands with the little hand? Or?
Yes, you do. See, that's the issue. I have 4 out of the 5 of us that raise their hands, and I would be interested too. So I think we got to figure this out. So prepare your pitch. Let's put it on the regular agenda for next week. Prepare your pitch on why you want to do it and how you think you can bring the best deal to it, and we'll decide next week. Okay? Because everybody wants to be on it.
Who didn't raise their hand? They can make the decision.
That would be Paul.
Don't worry, Paul. It's okay. All right. So let's put it on the regular agenda for next week, and we can have a little more discussion about it then, because right now it's already 9:45, and we still have a major discussion item tonight. We've got to introduce the budget. So I suggest we take a 5-minute break so people can go get something to drink or something to eat. I know Jeff hasn't eaten yet. He can grab a snack or a banana or something, anything to...
I'm going to get a beer.
Okay. I don't know what's in that glass.
And way in Margaritaville.
Tuya?
And thank you, Chief, for being available tonight for the discussion. So I look forward to whatever the next steps are.
Yeah. I think this has been a good discussion. It's given you a chance to hear from the community. It's not like you haven't heard some of these before, but you've heard them mostly from us or on Nextdoor, and this has been a much more civilized conversation than that has been lately. So anyway, okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's make it 7, 8. Let's get back at 9:50. Okay?
Thank you.
So we are all back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, we're all here. All right, so we will reconvene after our break. And the next item on the agenda is the introduction presentation of the proposed Clayton budget. It was a massive tome. So,
Can we put in the budget that we get Laura a good microphone?
No, it's the camera now.
Well, now we can hear you.
yeah, it's not just that. I think, honestly, I know we're paying for good service down at City Hall, but it doesn't get the greatest web service down there. It locks up once in a while.
It's a good microphone so we could hear her.
After a long time spending time on calls all day, you can really tell who has a mic and who doesn't. You need a mic.
Yeah. The mic is unfortunately embedded in the camera, which is at the top of the monitor, so I have to move it down so it's more in line with where we're projecting. But are you ready for
muffled, Laura?
We
muffled.
are ready.
Okay.
And
All
we
right.
do not object to brevity. We have already.
No, we are going to go. If I can get John to share up the PowerPoint slide, we're just going to run through that. Thank you very much. If we can go to the next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. As the council recalls, June 10th, we made a budget workshop presentation to you, and included in the 2021 budget discussion that we had at that workshop was to establish a new rainy day fund and direct certain revenues to go into that fund. Our finance director, Paul Rodriguez, established a new fund, number 110, for this purpose. In fiscal year 18-19, as you recall, the presentation at your June 10th meeting, there was $333,300 in operational excess revenues from the fiscal year 18-19. And we also identified $31,315 of unexpected funds from the $50,000 allocation from prior year for the Green Infrastructure Plan. The council directed those funds to be placed in that new rainy day fund, for lack of a better word, Fund 110, which has been done and is included in the budget document before you. Out of that fund, at that workshop, the council asked for three things to be covered in expenses from that new fund. The November 2020 election cost of $15,000, or extra janitorial cost for COVID at $12,500, and the third crossing guard at Mount Zion and Pine Hollow Road up at Mount Diablo Elementary School, estimated at $14,000 for an entire school year. This would provide an ending fund balance in this new Fund 110 of $323,115 at the end of the fiscal year. Next slide, please. In 1920, it's currently projected that the city may end with $146,019 in operational excess. As mentioned at the budget workshop, that's not an audited amount, and that amount would be updated after the audit with the actual year-end status. And we brought forward to you and for consideration of future allocations, but at least placed in Fund 110, and then that Fund 110 would be brought to you for additional allocation purposes. Next slide. This is just our major revenue sources, the 10-year trend. Some of the public might not have been participating or seen the workshop meeting, but Clayton is in a unique situation, a unique community. Most of our property tax revenue comes from your vehicle license fee, property tax in lieu of vehicle license fee, and secured property taxes. This is very different from some of our surrounding communities that have large retail bases. As you can see, our sales taxes and use taxes, which in most communities make up a third or more of their budget, is the smallest revenue stream that the city has. And the third highest revenue stream is our franchise fees. Next slide, please. This shows the total revenues that the city receives in terms of how it's allocated in the budget. The general fund being the largest amount, followed by the landscape maintenance district, which has collected revenues off of a special tax on the properties that the property owners voted for here. And then the smaller amounts that are provided through various other funds on their property tax bill or through other allocations. Next slide, please. Our expenditure budget shows pretty much the same thing. The general fund being the largest percentage of the city's usage, and that covers all your staff administrative costs, police department, maintenance costs that are not otherwise funded by those special revenue sources, such as the landscape maintenance district, stormwater, neighborhood street lights, the Grove Park, and the various transportation measures. Next slide, please. This just shows our general fund revenue history over the last 19 years. It shows what our actual budgeted revenues have been, and it shows a comparison that if our revenues had kept pace with the CPI, with the inflation index, where we really would have been with revenue. But you can see our revenues actually are under any adjustment made for inflation. Next slide, please. This is the allocation of the 1% ad valorem property tax that people pay on their tax bill. They're used to paying property taxes, but you can see how little the city of Clayton actually receives off of their property taxes. We get kind of a small piece of the pie. I know they pay a lot in property taxes, but out of their property taxes, we get approximately 6.6%. Next slide, please. And this is the sales tax component. We're all used to paying sales tax at the store, 8.25%. And as you can see, the amount that comes back to the city is a small piece of the pie at 1%. Next slide, please. Okay. This is our revenues by category. And this shows all your special revenue funds that we receive. Again, like I mentioned, the property tax in lieu of vehicle license fee is our largest one, followed by property tax, followed by franchise fees, and then it shows the remaining sources of revenues around the pie chart there. Sales and use taxes being about 9.7% of the revenue stream of the city's budget. Just a different way to show the whole numbers in a pie format. Next slide, please. This is our operating expenditures proposed for fiscal year 2021 by department. We have the police department being at 51.8% of the budget, and our administration, finance, and legal at 19, almost 20% of the budget. Community development department has about 7.1% of the budget, and then the remaining general services at 3.9%, which is and legislative, which includes city council workshops and things that we have to support for that. The community park is not self-funded, but we do show how much of the general fund is used up at the community park to maintain the ball fields and the facilities up there in terms of the community. On the slide, 51.8%, it's a little over half the city's operational expenditures goes to the police department. This is not uncommon. Your police department is your only department, staffing-wise, that serves our community 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So they, in essence, do have the largest share of the pie because they provide the most amount of service to our community. Next slide, please. This is the proposed general fund status for fiscal year 21-22. This 2020-2021. I'm moving ahead way too fast here. We have a projected fund balance, as you see, at $5.8 million. The projected revenues and operating expenses for this fiscal year would provide a budget revenue surplus of $425. We are balanced in our budget, and this is a very conservative budget. We did move forward with the transfers, as was indicated the early slide at the beginning, of $333,300 from 18-19, plus the green infrastructure residual of $31,315 to the new rainy day fund, fund number 110. And then we also show that we had a prior earmark that we did not capture in this rainy day fund of local hazardous mitigation plan effort and digital imaging of $44,867. That's previous allocation that has yet to be spent by the staff that will be spent in 2021. And then that would leave the projected balance at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, 2021 of $5,471,061 to be precise. Paul worked on that number diligently. Next slide, please. And this just shows a general fund appropriations in the red line as compared to what our opening general fund reserves has been on July 1 every year. So you can see our reserve fund has fluctuated back in 2013, and then it kind of grew in 2014, fluctuated in 15. So it kind of does a stair stepping. And then there's a forecast that Paul Rodriguez has put together going from June 30th, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. And again, that's projected. Next slide, please. Wanted to cover a couple of our individual funds that we typically highlight every year. The Landscape Maintenance District Fund, which is fund number 210 in the city's budget. This is the special revenue that's collected on the tax bill that the voters voted for that maintains our roadway landscape maintenance and our trail and open space maintenance. We have a few projects planned for next year. The Clayton Road median improvements, we have about $112,000 planned in that area to continue some plant replacement, which you've seen already in the area between, I think, Lydia Lane and on Clayton Road there. We have irrigation controllers replacement. These are more efficient controllers, and we're replacing those. And we're proposing to replace them at a faster rate so that we can manage our water budget much more efficiently. And then we've got repaving, repairing, and crack sealing of the trails for $175,000, and arterial tree trimming at $100,000. Given the low rainfall we had this last year, the maintenance team looked at this and felt that it was more important to take a look at doing some repaving and repairing and crack sealing of our trails. And we can maybe do that in conjunction with the street pavement program, which we typically do, and try to get some economies of scales as some add-ons to that contractor's budget. Our trees along our arterials are getting to be quite mature, and they do need to have additional trimming done. We did $100,000 worth this last fiscal year, and they're including in the budget this fiscal year another $100,000. So you can really see we're trying and we have just a minimal amount, $112,000 in the Clayton Road median improvement. So that's the focus. And as I mentioned in the staff report, the Trails and Landscaping Committee has not had an opportunity to meet, and certainly we will bring this to them at their first opportunity of meeting. And any adjustments or additional recommendations that they might make, we will bring back to the council for any changes to the budget based upon their recommendation that the council wants to make. Next slide, please. Capital Improvement Program. I don't know if Scott's joined us. He was having difficulties. Scott, you're there. You want to chime in on this?
Sure, I'll just make it really quick. We are proposing these 6 projects for 2020-21. Pine Hollow Road upgrade. We were successful in being awarded a Complete Streets Study grant in co-authorization with the City of Concord, and there's approximately $100,000 of study to be done in this next fiscal year with that grant. North Valley Park Playground Rehab, we're finishing that project up, and we will have it completed in this fiscal year. Same with the schools intersection project, the neighborhood streets repave, which we will be doing in conjunction with Martinez and Pittsburgh. The downtown pedestrian improvement project is scheduled for this year, although with the funding issues through CCTA that may be postponed. We have yet to hear definitively what's going to be the impact on that. And then El Portal Drive reconstruction, there's some rubber Cape Seal work to be done on that when the work with the City of Concord on the sewer line replacement or the repair work is completed. So the total of these 6 are $1,441,719. There are multiple other projects in the capital improvement program. Those are typically are future projects which are currently unfunded or underfunded. So we listed the 6 that are here as a part of this presentation.
Okay, and I'll just add that the entire 5-year CIP is included in your full budget packet. The funded projects are the ladder sheets that are at the back of the full 5-year CIP. If I go to the next slide, please. We wanted to touch on just a status report on the Pension Rate Stabilization Fund, which was established several years ago by the council. The end of 2021 at this time is proposed to have an ending net position of $286,551 in that account. And next slide, please. And wanted to go over our UAL unfunded actuarial liability payment. The total, Paul's put this together, and you can see that it travels all the way out to 2047. So this is the full payment plan over the years. And we are on track pretty much with these dollars amounts that we've included in the budget. So this is what we're using just for trending, and they are updated on an annualized basis. Next slide, please.
Does this one also say our outstanding unfunded liability? I don't see it there. I see the payments.
Oh,
well, it's not in that slide, but in the budget message, I'm still looking to make sure. Start in the budget message, starting on page 63 or page 62. We start talking about PERS. I'm just looking here as to.
Okay, I'll find it.
There's a trend. Well, the unfunded liability trend and the projected. It's I think it's supposed to end right around 2047. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, that's correct.
It's if you look at page 66, you see we're expecting it to peak right around June 2022. And then start heading down, and that actually it adjusts every single year. Looking at last year's numbers in this report, it was projected to peak and start getting reduced a little bit earlier than that. But then, with more current information, this is what we've got, and still projects again to be paid off in 2047. And of course, those numbers change as people retire and new employees come in at the PECRA rates or the Tier 2 Classic plan rather than the the Tier 1 plan. So those are all subject to change every year.
You're good there, Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
go to the next slide. Did want to highlight, as I did at the last workshop, 3 special revenue restricted funds that are projected to have revenue shortfalls starting in fiscal year 21-22 or shortly thereafter. These are all funded by special levies on the property tax bill, and any modification would require a 218 or similar process. And the 3 I'm going to just highlight for you that we have that we're monitoring is the Fund 212 with the Geological Hazard Abatement District. That applies to a section, or mostly all of Oakhurst, or section of Oakhurst. Fund 214, the Neighborhood Streetlight Assessment District Fund, and Fund 216, the Stormwater Assessment. Next slide, please. The GHAD Fund, it is slightly modified since I presented this at the workshop to you. The ending fund balance is gone down a bit more than what you had seen at the workshop, and this is because there's some additional work that the GHAD District Director, which is our City Engineer, Scott Allman, has included in the proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 that's needed work. And so that would leave us an ending fund balance of $230 at the end of 2021. Now, again, when we start the fiscal year 2021-22, we would have also received another approximately $45,000 in assessment district revenue to add to that $230 for an opening revenue account. So it's not like we're completely out of money, but the only money we will have is definitely the exact revenues coming in terms of project work that could be supported by it without any adjustment in the levy. The next slide, please, is the Neighborhood Street Lighting Assessment District. And as you can see, we've been drawing on the fund balance on that for the last several years, getting down to a point where, again, in 2020-21, at the end of the fiscal year, is projected to have an ending fund balance of approximately $37,000. Again, the prior fiscal year in 21-22, we would expect to have the standard levy amount of approximately $127,000 of income, but you can see that our expenditures with the PG&E costs going up and other fixed costs going up is outstripping the revenue source. So that's another one that the city engineer would need to look at revenue options and bring information back to the council in the future. And the next slide, please. The next one is our Stormwater Fund, Fund 216. Again, that's a special revenue that we receive from a levy on the property tax bills. Again, this would be one that would be subject to a Prop 218 or similar process to enhance or add another revenue stream to this component. We are expecting a fund balance at the end of 2020-21 of $1,333. We've been projecting on all of these that will be declining over the future. And we're now starting to get to the point where we need to start seriously looking at revenue options and bring that information back to the council as to what those options might look like and what direction the council would go. So again, we would have a revenue stream next year, or fiscal year 2021-22, of $136,000 to charge against, but as you can see, our expenditures are outstripping our revenue streams, and they have been for the last several years. It's just the gap is growing wider as more and more unfunded mandates come down from the State Regional Water Quality Control Board that require us to do certain things, and our only source of revenues is through this special assessment on the property tax bill, absent any other revenue stream. Next slide, please. And at this time, staff's recommendation is, as you've heard, the introduction and the presentation of this proposed City of Clayton budget for fiscal year 2020-21, and set the date for Tuesday, June 30th, 2020 at 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter, as may be heard, at a Zoom meeting as the date, time, and location for the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 city budget public hearing. And next slide. And with that, we have Paul Rodriguez here, our finance director, and Scott Allman is on the phone or verbally on the line for any questions related to GHAD streetlights and the CIP sections of the budget. As I mentioned, those 3 funds that we are identifying shortfalls in the near future on, we would plan to come back at a future meeting date with the council with revenue options and what that might look like for their consideration. Nothing is needed for this November's election. These will all be things that would normally be done more likely a Prop 218 majority protest public process. But we would bring back all those details later. So at this point, open for questions.
Okay, questions from the City Council. Who wants to go first? Jeff?
Yeah, I just have a few. For the stormwater fund, it looks like there's 3, again, essentially funds that are going to run short. For the stormwater, what happens if we spend less?
The state does not allow us to spend less. I have to do a report every year to all the mandated program requirements, and if we're found in default, they fine us $10,000, and that could be $10,000 a day. The way they go about achieving their fine is they withhold property tax monies from the state that are due to flow to the city.
Okay, great. Great. That's fantastic. So in the budget message, it says that I'm trying to recall. I think it says that we maintain 5 monitoring devices related. Like, what are those? And then it also said that we are the only city in the Bay Area to achieve compliance with this goal. So, like, are the other people being fined, or did we overextend? I don't know.
Hold on just a second here. Let me pull that up.
I have to find the page. Sorry that my scrolling is really slow here.
Okay, 216. Okay, so I think what you're referring to, possibly, the city has installed drainage inserts, basically those devices that catch litter in 25 locations in town. Trash capture devices, full trash capture devices. We did that with grant funds, and we achieved the reduction of 100% litter capture, so to speak, coming through the storm drain systems into those catch basins prior to the deadline that the state had set forth. So we were one of the few to achieve that ahead of time.
So what happens if I think it indicated that we were the only ones, like, is that also a penalty item, or what's if they're not in compliance but we are they being penalized? Like, I'm not clear on what's happening there.
Yeah, some cities are being financially penalized. Some were given an extra year to get into compliance, and some were actually required to put in even more than what they were normally required to do at a faster rate. So there was a time frame to achieve 100% compliance, and they had a check-in point, and some were below 50% at the halfway mark. They were at 40%, and the state said, well, we'll give you another year, but you're going to have to do 60 or 75% now. So they've had to accelerate their installation.
I mean, is that an option for us to, like, if we delay spending and then ask for, if we delay spending, I'm not talking about just that one thing. I'm talking about in general for some of these items that are required unfunded mandates. It sounds like in other areas.
The water quality monitoring, a lot of these are done at the regional level, and those funds are taken away from our tax revenue base already before we see the return to source money. We work in a group.
Okay, I guess my question is, do we have opportunity to slow play implementation of some of the required spend and, not incur significant penalty as it seems like other entities have been able to do?
They're not doing that, and no. Nobody's slowing down anything in the other cities. They have until a certain deadline to reach 100% compliance with their storm drain inserts. Some have fallen behind the halfway checkpoint, but the real requirement is in a couple of years that they have 100% of their city done, or 100% of what they're supposed to be done.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, it just seems inconsistent if other places are not meeting compliance as we are, which is what the budget message says, then it appears that they've found a way to spend not enough to achieve 100% compliance while still not being penalized. You think, am I saying that incorrectly?
Yes, a little bit. We accomplished our 100% of the trash capture devices early because we had a grant that would fund all of our requirements. We had 25 to do. Other cities say had 100 to do, 100 inlets to do. They only achieved 40% of those when they should have achieved 50 at the check-in point, but the requirement is 100% 2 or 3 years down the road. So they still have to get to 100% at the right deadline. So this was just a check-in point. We just happen to be ahead of the curve on that. There are cities who have been fined. Hercules has been fined, and so has some of the West County cities for non-compliance with the permit requirements.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. So then my other question is kind of unrelated to that. What's the difference in funding, like, for example, the crossing guard out of Fund 110 versus funding it or versus including it in the general fund budget? And then kind of like tangential to that is I think you had indicated in the presentation that this represents the amounts from FY19 and then the amounts in FY20, whenever they happen to be, if there is an amount, would also go into Fund 110. But this doesn't speak to the amounts from prior years that were also overages that were designated, or I don't know if we use encumbrances or not. If those items that we had designated, where are those located? Are those all complete, 100% complete?
Well, they're projected, and thank you for the question, Vice Mayor Juan. Where did my thing go? No. I thought the way that it was accounted for in the past was a little bit unwieldy in talking to staff. I mean, for past year operational excesses, that when the council first started moving in this direction, the former finance manager envisioned all of these projects being complete within a year and didn't really anticipate on things rolling over to future years. They did, most of them did, but at the end of fiscal year 1920, there were only a couple items that were left over, and they're expected to be spent in fiscal year 2021, and those were the two. I think it's about $44,867. The local hazard mitigation plan and digital imaging, and that was the remainder of the excess. And then I went into that beginning on page 21, and how on the earmarks from prior years. I just, it's easier, I mean, given that a lot of these, council say they identify a pot of money, they don't and you don't necessarily expect that you're going to spend it all in 1 year, but you have this unique operational excess from fiscal year June 30th, 2019 of $330,000. It makes sense to isolate that and put it into a fund for, future expenses that, are deemed to be appropriate, and maybe not one-time expenditures. The $14,000. I mean, we could have put it in and put it into the police department as an operational expense there, but felt it was appropriate to seek direction from the council. It was our recommendation that this would be an appropriate use of the rainy day fund money, and to also to break that out and more transparently show the community that, hey, we listen to you, and here's the expenditure out of this fund. It's right there in the budget. It's not
okay. No, that's fine. So I see the schedule on page 22. So And I think I've seen this before, so that's great. So is it the intent on a go-forward basis to utilize Fund 110 to capture any potential overages and track it in that manner?
Any overages that the council deems appropriate to move to that fund. So not necessarily. I mean, if, you know, say fiscal year 1920 ends up being a, you know, $146,000 as projected, but you know, you want to just leave it in the general fund reserves and not isolate it for, and you just want to keep it part of the general reserves, and you don't want to assign it for use for.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's fine. Yeah. So as long, my question was more like, we're not intending to create an individual fund for each individual year.
No.
All going to be one
Okay.
fund, and then every year you can decide what you would want, if anything else, to expend from it. So to be tracked just as its own special fund account.
It just kind of got a little
Okay,
unwieldy.
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I get it. I guess my only other comment would be, you know, I think my preference would be that we take on the funding of the Guard as an ongoing item rather than a one-time item as a rainy day item. So that'd be my comment. But I'll defer to my colleagues for other questions.
It doesn't make it a one-day expense or one-time expense.
The problem we have there, Vice Mayor, is if you were to do that, your budget would not be balanced for the end of this fiscal year. You'd be a minus $14,000 or $13,700 negative. So in essence, we would have to then balance the budget from the general fund reserve or the rainy day fund back to the police department budget in order to make your budget balance. This is a much easier way to track that.
No, I get that. Yeah, I mean, the idea is that, I personally don't want to have the conversation every year. That'd be the intent, so.
Well, our intent would be that we would just keep it. Quite frankly, for 10 years, you would only spend $140,000 out of this fund if you were to fund the crossing guard out of it for 10 years. But we can certainly look at the police department's budget next year, but right now the capacity is not there to absorb it into the budget without creating a deficit. But our idea would be next year we would include this because it's been council direction that this is a priority to fund. And if there's no other funding source available within the police department budget, we would recommend it still coming out of this rainy day fund.
Okay, thank you.
Other question? And if I may, it's just super unique this year and next with COVID. Some of our revenues, I mean, we're fortunate in that, you know, property taxes are our main source of income. We're not so dependent on sales tax, but that being said, those sales taxes have been affected and reduced. So just.
Julia?
Yeah, so I have a question regarding the $323,000 operational excess. And I get that we have not yet assigned it or designated it. And I know we discussed it last time that we would probably not be doing that right now. But I would like us to consider whether some of those funds should be allocated to the unfunded actuarial, I can't pronounce that name, the UAL liability fund. And I don't know if I have all the info to understand that quite. I recall that maybe in some prior years we had a graph that sort of showed what the anticipated balance of the UAL was going to be, and maybe I didn't dig deep enough to look at it. But I would like us to consider whether it's staff's position that we ought to be putting some of the excess into that fund at this time or not, and then for us to think about that as well.
My recommendation on that, council member, would be when we see what the year-end close is for this fiscal year, Paul is projecting a surplus of maybe $140,000, that we would bring this topic back to you. And I think that would be the perfect opportunity to discuss where you would want those funds to go and what the options are in terms of other needs in the city. It was 2 years ago that the council directed $100,000 of the excess operational to go into the UAL. And the last 2 years, we've only had the interest earnings done in 18, 19, and 19, 20, I think it was. So that's where we are, and that's what I would recommend, that we would bring that to you. And it would be in February, likely, approximately, is usually when we have about the mid-year kind of wrapped somewhere in that time frame. I'm
Yeah.
giving Paul a, no, he's okay with that, yes. That's usually the time frame. So we would bring all of that back with the information as to the year-end close and what funds are available, and the council can provide policy direction on how they will want those funds allocated.
That works for me. I just want it to remain on our radar in terms of understanding what the balance is and whether we should be putting additional monies into that fund.
Other questions or comments? Nothing else, huh? Well, then the appropriate action for this evening is I need a motion to introduce the budget, and there is a reso in there somewhere, right?
No, not tonight.
I think we need to take public comment, right?
To
take public comment, and then you would set the public hearing for next Tuesday at 7 p.m.
So we need a motion to set next week for the public hearing.
If you want
Jim Diaz moves.
You need to take public comment.
Do we need to take public comment?
Yeah, we do. Anybody in the public have comments on this?
I have no hands raised.
Hands raised. Were there any submitted, Janet? Janet, wake up.
Gotta unmute. No, Mayor Pierce, there were no public comments received on this item prior to this item being presented.
Okay, and I'm guessing we put our 6 audience members. Oh, Irina has a question. All right, Irina, we can get you unmuted here. Irina, you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm trying to, did I unmute myself?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so the question is, after listening carefully, and I'm still working, it's already my 12 hours today. So the question is a special assessment on our tax bill is going to go up? I mean, is it going to go up for sure? Is it just to want to make sure? It looks like it, right?
Certain special assessments will definitely go up. They were approved to increase based on CPI as provided in the assessment as approved. And those are annual increases that are typically limited to CPI, the lower of CPI or a certain percent. So certain ones are definitely going to go up. Things like jihad and others as well, they go up like 1% or something like that.
The good news is your sewer rate's going down temporarily. The increase that they projected for us is not going to go into effect right away. So that'll help offset some of the cost of living increases.
Okay.
Did you have follow-up on that, or is that it? Or?
No, that's it. That's it. That's what I gathered from all the budget. I mean, I'm good with numbers. So I was listening very carefully while working. So, but I figured out that the special assessment will go up. Okay.
Yep. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I had a motion from Jim to set June 30th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Or as shortly thereafter as may be heard in Hoyer Hall as the date, time, and location of a public hearing on the proposed city budget. Who seconded that?
Just to clarify, it won't be in, just to clarify, it'll be a Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting. That's right. It'll be a Zoom meeting.
A second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Diaz, a second by Juan. All in favor, please say aye. Janet, call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor Pierce. Councilmember Catalano.
Aye.
Councilmember Diaz.
Yes.
Councilmember Wolf.
He made the motion with his mouth.
Okay. Vice Mayor Juan.
Aye.
And Mayor Pierce.
Yes.
I forgot it was
Thank you.
muted. Aye.
Okay.
Mayor, if I can, before we leave this item, I'd like to personally thank Paul Rodriguez, our new finance director, for stepping in and taking on this task in a very short period of time to bring this budget to us in the timeline that we had hoped for in June. He started with us not too long ago and hit the ground running here at the beginning of June with me to get everything wrapped up here in just this matter of a few short weeks for your full budget packet for tonight's meeting. So I just want to personally thank him for the yeoman's effort that he has put in to hit the ground running. And I will tell you, he was paddling really quickly upstream and he made it to the top. So very good. Thank you.
I would actually add to that. Paul, you started with us. Your first day was April 7th in the middle of the COVID-19 isolation. You were in City Hall every single day, working hard and learning brand new software and putting together a budget in less than 2 months. Kudos to you.
I couldn't have done it without this staff here.
I understand it's a team effort, but you're the one that had to do it and you're the one that had to understand it because you're the finance manager. So we appreciate that it was a team effort and we appreciate all of you, but good job. That was pretty awesome.
Fantastic.
Yes. The final item on the agenda is council items limited to council requests and directives for future meetings. Are there any extra items you want to put on new agendas?
No, are we
feeling a little inundated, right?
Are we meeting every Tuesday in July as well?
Yeah, let's add Thursdays to the mix too.
We are hoping not.
Oh, because I got the meeting invite and I thought it was every Tuesday in July.
I set it up for recurring and it wouldn't let me do it for just this month. It just goes out forever. So we'll fix it.
So the intent is we're meeting next week to pass the budget and then it's back to our regular first and third agenda as far as we can manage. Okay?
You are here, Carl, until you die.
Be careful what you wish for.
Hearing no items for future agendas and nobody screaming for extra meetings, we are now adjourned to our meeting next week on June 30th, when we will pass the budget on time. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Good night.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
That's all I have left to do.